Welcome to day 4 of the group stages here in Sao Paulo for the Six Invitational. We're almost done and dusted, but not just yet. Still 2 more days to go. I got 2 very handsome gentlemen joining me on the desk. Ollie, Fox, how we doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Got 2 manly men on my desk, so gotta up the voice, you know, really match the tempo.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I know that. Do you know what we're talking about?
I know what you're talking about.
So I was going to come in and say something really wholesome. Like, I get a little bit of goosebumps when I watch that intro. Like, I'll be honest, I see like the intro coming, the music, I'm like, Six Invitational, I'm like, yeah, goosebump time.
Nah, just a bunch of goosebumps, goofballs, it's all the same thing. Let's go ahead and have a look at how things have to play out for Six Invitational for you to grab that hammer. Of course, we've got group stages first, then we lead into playoffs where we go to the all-elusive finals. Ollie, how do you feel like group stages have panned out so far?
I think groups have been great. We've seen a couple of upsets. We've seen a couple of surprise results in there as well. A couple of teams doing a bit better than we expected. A couple of teams maybe doing a little bit worse than we expected. And don't forget, we've got to send 4 teams home inside of the group stage, and we're really getting down to that time now.
It's pretty sad, isn't it?
It's a little sad, but we couldn't ask for some better games.
No, we couldn't. This is how all the groups are panning so far. Of course, 1 through 5, that is the rankings in each of the groups. It's probably important to have a look at who's at the bottom of the group now, because that's where things are really shaping up. That's where the conversation is going to take a very large place. Fox, looking at this, what's the biggest disappointment so far?
I think we can all agree the biggest disappointment is probably Group C, but in my opinion, it's not too uncharacteristic right now. I actually kind of predicted this going into the tournament, just of how Group C shaped up and how M80's played in prior events.
Yep.
But then being at the bottom now, with few days to go with 0 points, it just ticks down little by little, 1 day at a time, and when you don't get a point under your belt, it's very stressful.
Yeah, it's incredibly interesting how last night's games panned out. Of course, if you weren't watching, Virtus.pro took top spot after beating W7M in a very close series, and then it was backed up by Bleed, then beating Team Liquid. Ollie, that was maybe the biggest shock we've had so far in the tournament?
We knew that this group was going to be stacked, right? We were calling it the group of death from the start. You've got 2 Brazilian teams in there. You've got one of the better teams inside of Europe in there. And you've got M80, the super team that is looking less and less like a super team as every single event rolls around. And then you've got Bleed. And Bleed are that team that can just come out there and throw a surprise result in.
Yeah, they are APAC's best hope at the moment. There's no doubt about it.
That's what I thought. I think Bleed's bringing out a lot of innovation.
Yeah.
They've been playing a different style of Siege that not many teams are, I guess, used to.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and have a look at how today is going to play out. Of course, the second last games. I think there's a couple of teams that have, obviously 4 teams have today off, but there's a couple of teams that will be playing their last game. I know for M80, this might be one of their last chances. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but when we're looking at Stream B in particular, Fox, you got anything you're keeping your eye on?
I think the most 2 important games is Liquid W7M and Bleed M80. I think we mentioned it a little bit on the pre-show that if Liquid and Bleed get some points away today, that kind of seals M80's fate. They don't even have a chance to make a comeback today and tomorrow.
Looking at that as well, you think both W7M and Liquid lost yesterday. So this is going to be a real big revenge match for both of these 2 teams. Obviously, it's a local derby. You've got that thrown into the mix as well. And it's when the points matter so much.
It's kind of crazy. Is that our first local derby?
I think well, it must be because there's only that is the only team that has 2.
Oh
yeah.
My word! Oh, that's a spicy one.
I just want to add a little just salt into the wound. Yesterday, right before the W7M game, he was asking me why I predicted Bleed to 2-1 Liquid, and I thought he was defending Liquid, but he actually said no. I think Bleed's gonna 2-0 them.
Oh,
so
wow!
And then for him to go and lose, Liquid still lost, but for him to go and lose, it was just funny to have that little banter back and forth where he was throwing a little shade on a Liquid.
We love a little bit of shade around here, but it is time for us to hone in a little bit closer on our first matchup of the day. We've got FaZe taking on Team Bliss. Team Bliss yet to take any points away from their matches, but overall, maybe a little bit of a disappointing in the attacking win column for Bliss. Crikey.
I think Bliss are that team that you've got to give them a little bit of credit. I know that they're a fan favorite team. There's a lot of people out there that get behind this team because of the personalities on the squad, and that only takes you so far. They have come tantalizingly close to picking up map wins so far. They have lost both of their games 2-0, but both of their games have been extremely close. We're talking 7-5s, 8-6s. they're 1 or 2 rounds away from taking a map and just changing the entire landscape of that best of 3.
What do you think about this matchup?
It's a stressful matchup for Bliss. I mean, Oda kind of came up to us and was like, what do we got to do? I mean, I think they have a very good, strong defensive side. They're able to handle a lot of aggression that teams throw at them. The prior 2 teams that they've played against, Wolves and SSG, Wolves have been very aggressive in this tournament so far. And I think they handle that very well, but FaZe is one of those slower tempo teams. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle more time to execute.
Sure. Well, if that's what we're doing, let's go ahead and talk about the slower paced team, Team FaZe.
My name is KDS. I play for FaZe Clan and I'm Enter 2. For me, the best parts for SI in São Paulo is because in my home country, so that's amazing. I think our group is much better than Atlanta because we have a problem with the aggressive teams, and now we are very much stronger. We're feeling very prepared to play against all teams. For me, the toughest match will be against SSG and Wolves because are aggressive teams and they are very good in their region. All the players in the group are motivated because we really want to win this SI. Então, The Plus, a gente tá vindo forte aí, vocês vão perder, e é isso, tamo junto.
So, Ollie, coming into this, 2-0 and 0-2. Do you reckon they're feeling the pressure?
I think that the pressure is definitely going to be getting to this FaZe squad right now. We haven't seen them play the lights out siege that we expected them to play. We know that FaZe is a real top tier team. They are a contender no matter what. Now, you're always going to have a couple of wobbles inside of the group stage, but I'm seeing some trends that I've seen before on this roster, and one of those is Cyber. We expect so much more from this player, and currently he's -6 overall, -3 on the entry. I'm not sure if he's having that desired impact that FaZe really need at this point.
Especially with FaZe being the best attacking team currently in Atlanta and him still struggling. They have a 55% win rate on attack. With him struggling, it just goes to show that their structure is very in place. He's the main player that you'd expect to go in, get 1-2 kills before he's taken out, but right now he's been getting shut down by the teams that he's playing against. I think from Atlanta, because he had such a strong showing there really just is a lot of information on how they play, and I think teams are focusing him specifically. But the rest of FaZe is just so slow and methodical with how they attack the bomb site that they're able to pull that round through with or without him.
How do you think that's panning out so far in this group? Obviously, a slower, more methodical approach leads into a different conversation altogether, especially coming from a Brazilian team.
I mean, I think FaZe showed up day 1, and I really got to commend SSG for day 2. I think they just outperformed and had a really good game plan for FaZe specifically. I don't think FaZe did anything wrong in the grand scheme of things. They just played their consistent game, focused on themselves. SSG was just able to exploit that.
Well, let's go ahead and have a little bit of a deep dive into KDS, player for us that we felt like was needed to be highlighted. Ollie, what do you think of the performance so far?
So we talk about Cyber and we say, where is he lacking? And well, look at it. This is where the slack is getting picked up right now. KDS, top performing player currently on FaZe. Souls, interestingly, has got one more kill overall than him, but the overall stats, the overall EPS for KDS is fantastic right now. You can see him hitting 78% cost there as well. Really doing a lot of the hard work. If you look at his operators he's playing a lot of Book. Book's been one of the most played attacking operators so far this SI. We let him off on the defense. He runs around on the Legion. He maybe picks a good gun and stuff like that, but let him have it if he's performing.
I'm going to ask you, how important do you think it is for a player like KDS to pop off against a team like Team Bliss? They're from my region, okay? They're from OSA's my region. I love them. But how important is it for an individual to be on point in this kind of game?
I think when you are a team at FaZe's caliber and you have everyone that can explode at a moment's notice and you have that structure for years to come, I think it's not too important. But on the other side of things, when you're Bliss, I feel like you need a little bit of that individual flair to really guide you and bring your team that momentum and confidence that they are slowly lacking a little bit so far in the tournament.
Every time they yell and shout, I always get thrown off instantly, every single time. But a team currently is struggling in this group. 0-4. It's Team Bliss.
My name's Oda. I play for Team Bliss, and I play Fragger/Lurk. I feel like me and my team feel very confident coming here. We made both majors during last year, so we have a lot of confidence coming into an event like this. But it is an SI, so there's high stakes, and yeah, we're just keen to perform, really. Preparations for SI were kind of adapting to the new meta. The game's changed a lot since Atlanta. So in our group, we have FaZe, who looks like they're the strongest opponent for us. Definitely feel like we can beat them. I'm not really scared of anyone in our group. We've also got SSG and Wolves, which we're kind of looking for revenge from Atlanta. Only losing by 1 round to both of those teams. And D+, they're a team that we've practiced a lot against, but it'll be good to verse them on an international stage with no ping. So our first game is against the Wolves. I feel like they're going to play very aggressive, so we're here to match their energy and shut them down. Hey Wolves, this is Oda. Make sure you don't choke to an APAC team again.
Damn, that's tough. Unfortunately, they didn't, brother. So that's just how the cookie crumbles. Look, to be fair, in that interview, he's talking about SSG and Wolves and the fact that they only lost them by 1 round at Atlanta. Guess what? It's happened again.
Yeah.
They've struggled, but only just, Ollie.
The thing is, it's really difficult for us to sit here on a desk and to pick apart what Bliss is doing wrong. Because overall, they're making the same mistakes that a lot of the teams make. They're coming super close to picking up maps inside of these best of 3s. It's tantalizing. It's got to happen at some point. And all we can really sit here and say is that I feel like they just need to hold the nerve a little bit more.
Yeah.
Look at the experience that they're going up against. You've got a side like FaZe, you've got players that have been there, done it, won majors, you name it. They've played Siege at an international level for a very long time. Host region, Bliss, still, in the grand scheme of things, quite new to this. And there's only one thing that's going to get them better, and that's reps. Getting the rounds in and getting put in that pressured situation and seeing how they react.
To even go one step further and confirm that theory, they were up 5-3, 5-3 yesterday against.
This is the thing, yeah.
In their matchup, and they threw the rounds, and that was pretty much their downfall. Is just they didn't know how to handle that pressure that comes with the nail-biting games.
Look, the way I'd put them in this event is they're the worst salesmen. They can't close. It's just unfortunately how it is. But for one player in particular, he's doing very well. Brendo has been popping off so far in the grand scheme of things in comparison to maybe the rest of the team. Maybe I'm going a bit harsh.
I think pop-off's maybe strong. He's playing the best out of the roster at the moment. Is he popping off in the scheme of the tournament? Maybe not, but he's certainly doing his part here. Again, one of the trends that you may have noticed there between the previous player highlight and this one from Brendo, for anyone watching at home, play your Legions. Legion's fantastic at the moment, and there is no coincidence that both of the players that are popping off are rocking at that operator.
I mean, even though he is only +5 and he is leading the statistics on his team, you got to commend how Bliss is still able to keep these games so close by 1 round, 2 rounds. The way that they, their strength is pretty much being on defense, and it looks like they hold their own very well. They're able to handle multiple people at once. Oda, significant position that I know that he plays in is open area on bank. He was able to fight off SSG a bunch. And so if we can see a little more of that on the attack side of things, a little more of that confidence, and they don't let the fear get to them, I think the rest of Bliss could actually help Brendo in this situation.
Oh God, I hope so. I pray to God. Help him out. Help him out, boys. Let's go ahead and have a look at the map vetoes, figure out where we're going for this one, because that could shape a little bit of the conversation. I don't know how much, but ultimately this is a David versus Goliath story. You cannot... There's no two ways about it. Skyscraper, Chalet, Cafe, Border, gone. Wow, we got a Clubhouse and Bank to kickstart this one.
We're going to be hitting into Clubhouse. I mean, I've always said if you can't play a Clubhouse, then you got no business being at an SI or at a major. So we're going to expect something there from Bliss. On the flip side, it isn't a map that we've seen FaZe play all too much recently, although historically they are a good side on it. They played it against D+ a couple of days ago inside of the group, but you can really take from that what you will. D+ a team that is really struggling at the moment. So I think it's probably a great place for Bliss to go to try and get some sort of a confidence build. It's a map they've also left open as a decider in both of their best of 3 so far.
To highlight specifically on Bank, I already brought it up with Oda. I think they were doing a very good job against Wolves on taking position, holding position on defense.
Sure.
But they were lacking the ability to read what the enemy team was doing on their side of defense. So when they were attacking, Wolves was giving them full top floor control, full executability, wanting them to go for that plan. And Bliss wasn't taking that. They were just wasting their time out and hurting themselves in the long run.
Well, one thing that we haven't said so much this far is that this game is critical for Team Bliss. D+ and Bliss are currently 0 points at the bottom of their group. They'll play together tomorrow. So this has some pretty massive stakes on it for the Aussies. It is FaZe taking on Bliss. We go to Clubhouse, Emmy and Guz to run you through the action.
Thank you very much. And yes, we are here. A pleasure to be joined by a representative of Australia. For Australia's, it's not quite the last hope, because if it goes wrong here, they've got a game in hand tomorrow. But how is the hope going?
There's a little bit.
Little bit.
There's a little bit of hope.
A little bit of hope, right?
Bliss have been very, very close on a couple of occasions on, snatching a map or two.
It's like frustratingly close.
Yeah.
The 17% there, this is sort of in line, I think, with what the general consensus is. But it's not that they haven't been in winning positions, as Manic said. They just can't close.
Yeah, the pressure getting to Bliss, especially on attack. And as they get closer towards a game going their way, it seems that, unfortunately, their systems do sometimes crumble under said pressure. This is probably the one game of the group, though, where they're probably not really actually expected to win, so maybe that pressure can actually be alleviated a little bit.
So obviously there's these like brilliant little interviews before the games, and we have the one with Oda where he says, this is going to be the toughest game. We will beat SSG and Wolves. They've got news from
Spoiler alert.
From the future. They didn't.
No.
They've dropped all 4 maps so far, so now they're coming into what is the toughest map. There's still the mental hope of, okay, maybe, you never really know how games like this will aspect your opponents. We've seen the sort of David and Goliath matches go to the favor of the smaller team because Goliath doesn't really put as much work in. Maybe they're sort of expecting a slightly different experience. If Bliss hit the boards with the pace they said they could hit Wolves with, we might see FaZe get a little bit shaken. That can turn into Club into some pretty tasty momentum.
Well, I mean, FaZe head into this event as the number 2 seed, the second overall in terms of SI standing. They obviously had a good start, 2-0 over D+. Unfortunately, though, against SSG, a very different narrative where they struggled, did not capture a single map. They did have a day off, though, so an opportunity to reflect upon that performance and prepare themselves for this game. Whereas for Bliss now, obviously, the ability to keep that energy up is now going to be a bit of a challenge.
And as we prepare ourselves to get into this showdown, I say fun fact. This is what's happened. This is the type where he's untangling himself. Oh yeah. What if you were a player? A, would you bring a mascot? B, what would the mascot be?
Ooh, that's a tough question.
These are the hard-hitting questions.
Well, I don't think I would ever be good enough to remotely consider being a player. So
let me rephrase. If you're a player in a show match.
Ooh. I don't know. I think it's hard to go past the kangaroo.
Right.
A little plush kangaroo.
Yeah.
What about you?
I would write a small like drawing or like a picture that was impossible to decipher. So every single time it cut to me, the audience would be like, oh, what is that? And then it would cut away and it would just be nonsense.
Well, you did. It's still on the desk. You did draw a very beautiful.
I don't know if the stream ever actually saw that.
No.
Oh, there's a drawing I did.
Maybe later.
Gus and Xenox on their first day.
I think it's us. It's hard to tell.
I'm not an artist. My family are very talented at art. That skipped me entirely. The bad news for those that are sort of following this team in the roster, the last time that FaZe played an Australian team on this map was versus Chiefs in the Diablo Major. The score was 7-1, the FaZe roster at the time. It was a little bit of a dismantling, I've got. The one player that was in that game from the Australian side, at least, was Fisher Guy, was on that roster at the time. So he's had a little bit of experience versus a FaZe team on Club.
Yeah, I mean, Fisher has a lot of experience overall. I was talking about this briefly with Jake in game number 1 of the tournament. He has been around since pretty much day dot of Pro League in OCE. In fact, he debuted in Season 7 alongside Virtue and is arguably now the most experienced player in the region. He's been on that support role. He's transitioned a little bit around and actually has been fragging out on a couple of maps so far at the tournament. So again, he's the kind of player that we look at to be someone that knows how to close out games. Obviously, the rest of the team around him now has a decent amount of international experience, but translating that across to this sort of stage is very, very challenging. And on a lot of the occasions where Bliss have had that lead, they make very minute mistakes that they would be able to get away with OS. And that's the problem, right? They don't have as much experience against teams of significant quality that punish those mistakes, right? And if you get other games across the line where you get away with those mistakes, you kind of get used to making them.
Yeah.
And undoing those mistakes and adjusting your play style is challenging. And I think Bliss have fallen victim to that.
Well, I think that's sort of the split of things as well. Obviously, first SI for any of this roster to bring themselves in. This is Cyber's 6th Invitational performance. All the way since 2019, he has made sure that he has kept himself sort of popping up and across. And, you know, there are players on that team. Handy, it's his first. Vidaking, it's his second. And that level of experience, though, just doing it once before, I mean, it's got to be so tough going against the team that could be, as a fresh team here, one of the most historied players at this event.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, experience is so vital in Siege. Now, obviously, the meta and the way in which the game plays dramatically changes, whether it be from stage to stage or year to year. But I think that the mental aspect and having the confidence and having the trust in yourself and your teammates in closing out games is just so important at this level. And unfortunately for Bliss, I just don't think they quite have that in them at the moment. I think they have the dog in them, but they just don't have the experience inside of them to be able to unleash it.
Yeah, they have a dog. It's just not the right dog yet.
Just a puppy.
You gotta train that puppy. You
Yeah.
gotta train that. Get them Australian Shepherd.
They can run around all day.
They are beautiful, insane dogs.
They're the ultimate roamer. They never get tired.
Doesn't James Devon Stewart have an Australian Shepherd?
I believe so.
It's the only reason I follow him on social media, is so I can
Likewise.
see his posts of his great dog that's getting experience. Maybe one day that dog will play a major alongside it. It looks like the players, headsets back on, they're getting a little bit more into it, so we'll hopefully be back in the game in just a second. I say back into the game itself. The bands, Habana, Thatcher, Mira, and Solus.
Yeah, Solus has been a staple band for Bliss throughout the event, and I believe it's been their go-to for every single map, and it has. And again, Bliss, at least in OS, a team that is very much leaning into pre-placed drone meta and gaining that information in the prep phase. So, of course, dealing with the Solus allows that to be facilitated. And you think of a map like Clubhouse, there are also opportunities on some particular objectives. You think of Gym, you think of CCTV for the Solus to have an impact from down below as well.
Okay, final checks of our very experienced player Cyber there. A little bit of a good energy, a little bit of a boogie.
Having a dance party over at the Bliss booth.
What time is it right now in Australia?
I
You don't have to be
believe
precise.
it is 7 past midnight. So
Okay, so this is gamer hours.
yeah, I
they're
know
in their
there's a
element.
bunch of them watching it, so thank you for staying up.
Yeah, thanks. I hope we get a result. And
I mean, you say we, you're not Australian.
No, but you know, I feel kinship.
Okay.
I've watched Hamish and Andy.
Ooh.
And thank God you're here.
Yeah.
I love Auntie Donna.
Mm-hmm.
That's.
What about Lamingtons? Have you had a Lamington?
I don't think so.
Do you know what that is?
No.
Oh.
Should we cancel the cast?
They
Should we
are like a chocolate cake coated in coconut.
That sounds amazing. That's
Very nice.
How can we? Okay, I remember I've tried Vegemite because it often gets brought to the shows.
Mm-hmm. I have some.
Do you travel everywhere with it, or are the places?
Only overseas because it's very difficult to get.
Yeah, I can imagine if you go to a Brazilian store and start speaking Portuguese for Vegemite, I don't think
They
that
would look at me
translates.
like I am insane.
We start down here in the depot basement. Kaid is on the board, Thatcher is off, so these hatches are going to be a little bit problematic. We've got the chance to bring an IQ. We've seen some great IQ pocket EMP plays, but that is not what wants to be done here by Bliss. Instead, the Fuse has made a bit of an appearance alongside maybe the sneakiness of the Nook on the back end. But Brendo, for me, is the one to watch in terms of how they're going to try and deliver those charges towards this hole.
Yeah, looking to cook something up. Sledge as well in play, prioring that over the buck, which you would more typically see to open up LOS through that kitchen hallway. Sage and Jim, line of sight, main stairs, and that's to push those defenders back, trying to contest the push across from Oda. That frees up a bit of space for him now to push forward. And Oda's the kind of player where if he's on, he's on. So if he can sort of fill the work role nicely here on attack and give his team a couple more win conditions, that's really going to bolster their chances on this attacking half.
Huge bit of pace there in terms of a clear across the map. There was a a sort of light exploration and an extension. They didn't go all the way towards the top, but they had some of the holds inside the bar, and those have since been pushed back to this. There is the Claw that'll try to hold off against Wettables, but it's Sage. He gets the first. Souls is gone, removed. Now the Claws will obviously stay as long as they are in position. A bit of a scrape against Brendo on the back end of Blue as Wettables and Vidaking find some tastes of each other. But look at the way FaZe are being sort of pushed back further and further. They think Dirt is solid. Bliss, they're trying to get little bites out of very different angles here on the defense.
Yeah, they've applied a good amount of pressure on the attack so far, and you can see FaZe trying to settle in playmaking positions. That's a challenge at the moment. It's a little over 70 seconds to go, and Handy will produce a response. So Oda on that lurk, on that Nook, unfortunately will hit the grave. Brendo, of course, taken low before, so he'll have to be mindful for the push through Blue, and it's KDS to lock that down at the moment on the Wamai with magnets in hand. He's just mindful of the push down the staircase from Bliss, which will hopefully be synced with a push elsewhere. Fish over secondary on the kitchen hatch, and it's likely going to be a drop plant.
Yeah, tin opened and 45 seconds on the board. They're starting to try and get their eyes towards that default corner. The little pocket of space they've made might be an opportunity of drawing attention. Here, Brendo, he's on the back line of this with every single back heading towards the line of his sight. If he can catch one on maybe a rotate or just the clip of the foot, if they go a bit wide here, well, he has that opportunity. The one problem right now is this time. So Wettables, he's pushed alongside Dirt. They're just getting the space cleared. You've got the single player of Sage watching the back of the rotate towards the bottom as Fish tries to get the plant kit stuck. Pushed off and picked back up. He's round the corner as Sage has the cover of Handy that we talked about before. Down the long corridor, they get the rotate though, and he's able to get himself up and down and get it to the 4 versus 1. Cybernado blown asunder. And a Vamos to open up a first Bliss round.
Yeah, can't complain too much about that. If you're a Bliss fan, a decent attack to kick things off. Hatch drop was always going to be the play for them there. The only real blemish was allowing the push through short. Sage was zoned out by the smoke canister, but Fisho gets the call, so Sage communicating that nicely, gets off the plant, makes sure that he hits that one. It was a great start, the Mav Sledge combination, some good teamwork to kick things off here for Bliss. And I can't help but shake the feeling that if they at least have a solid attacking half, it's going to be more challenging, I think, for them to throw the lead on defense.
I mean, that take there onto the Kaid was lovely. The Maverick line just down the middle of the sort of hard reinforcements, instead of giving them the space and the time where you expect, oh, they'll go around the corners, they'll get out of here, yeah, I'm Kaid, I'm dead. I've been caught off by this. And those are the little moments that, if anything was to take away from Oda's interview before the game where he sort of said, we're going to hit the Wolves with a bit of pace, that didn't quite work. That is the energy that you need to bring to FaZe here. That is the energy where you need to sort of shake them awake, because although they came in as one of the favorites, although FaZe, they're one of only 3 teams across the whole year to make the live stages alongside W7M and G2 at the previous majors, they have bled this tournament. They have had a knock from SSG, a little bit of surprise, and SSG, again, a team who has that high energy, has that high impact. And we go up towards CC for the next swing.
So interestingly, no Azami in play here from FaZe. They have banned out in their previous games, most notably on Cafe against SSG. So we'll see how they go about holding this Garage Rafters position. Currently 2 stacking it at the moment. And Bliss will need to determine if that's something that they're eager to push into, or perhaps pivot to something like a push through con. The Maverick is once again being brought here by the Aussies, so expecting them to trip the wall. And that will, of course, be first of many steps for this particular attack.
Yeah, Mav, he was great in the meta, slipped away from the meta. Always enjoyed a good clubhouse, a cheeky clubhouse, especially with Tubarao potentially on the board at the minute. It's seen some play across it.
Oh.
Endo takes the head of KDS off. The sort of targeted top players of both 2 teams in the preamble on the desk. And there is one getting off to a little bit more success, 2-2-0, 2-0-2. And as the rest of the Maverick tries to just make this wall fall apart. It's awkward when you miss that first corner, but now the Breach can come across it. The E1B stops the swing against it. And as the Bees try to force the Rafters players into a more uncomfortable situation, as long as they have some discs up there or the ones generated in their pocket, they should be able to survive and hold this. With the man disadvantage, though, they have to be aware of just where this pinch might come from.
I mean, Rafters now weakened. I don't know if KDS looked to overpeak that position or perhaps was unaware. But a nice pick from Brendo and handy falls as well. So Garage not going the way of FaZe, and Bliss off to a blistering start here on Clubhouse. A 5-3 advantage, and now it's just about consolidating their positions. A default plant will ensue in a moment. From here, this is just fundamental siege and ensuring that they get it done.
I mean, fundamental is what this site is built on. You can see the drop, the rotation towards CC window on the back end. You assume there's maybe going to be some pressure onto Souls underneath, and it does, but it doesn't quite come together. Fisho goes down as well. The canister just will get the tip of the finish, and suddenly we found ourselves in the 3 versus 3. Souls, he's rotated his way back up. The Fenrir mine on the inside of the left door is causing nightmares for a lot of players, but Wettables might be the nightmare that hits the player. No, swung either side, a body on red and on the back of logistics. Wettables needs to keep putting the pressure on, but the Frostmat catches the player. All eyes on the site, and now all eyes only on Brendo. Open up the round with the opening kill against KDS. Now to see if he can try and find the sliver of the remaining 2. The ping's onto 1, and the diffuser with a little bit of an eye onto the default position, but he knows he has to try and push the advantage. A great take onto the first. The second has found their way around onto the back end of red. Cannot get a proper swing here. They're going to play against Audio. There's nothing in the pockets of Vidaking, so he's going to get in close with the shotgun. Brendo comes off, but he stops just in time. Vidaking gets the swing with the shotgun and levels things up.
Well, that's the kind of round that Bliss need to be converting. 5-3 advantage, top floor. It should be a set-piece push, but it falls apart. Good disruption from Vidaking, able to drop Fish. There was another frag elsewhere, and then, of course, Vida in the 1 versus 1, very composed, wins it out. Unfortunate for Bliss on that occasion, but for FaZe, being able to bring that round back will instill some confidence.
It was sort of everything setting up to go well, and then suddenly things go wrong. The first take by Brendo, just great positioning. Again, working alongside the Maverick to have that angle on the unexpected players here. The push and the take towards the top of the stairs. 2 canister kills on 2 downed players. And I guess when we have the conversations of experience, of worry, and of things going wrong when the pressure is at its highest, unfortunately, the longer they go in the tournament without a win, without a map to their name, the pressure will just get worse and worse and worse. Things like being able to scream up those stairs without that pre-placed drone or the physical intel makes things a bit stickier. The third site rotation takes us over towards Jim and, well, takes us towards a Monty for Fisho.
Yeah, Tim and I were having a couple of discussions yesterday about the effectiveness of Monty in the tournament thus far, and we sort of came to the consensus that results have been mixed. You have to be really, really careful in this kind of meta, the way in which you actually employ the Monty and how you play around it.
Yeah.
Of course, you can gain great information, you can directly pressure defenders, but it's critical that you have the systems working around the Monty to actually find picks, because it's obviously one less gun the attacker has on the board.
Yeah, it becomes that argument of how much you're dedicating, and it's something that has happened the whole time of Siege. It is so different fundamentally from playing a decent gun, from playing a decent player. You have teams where their top fragger has to go onto Monty because no one else can play the shield. Here, Fisher taking that mantle, taking that big Monty and getting towards this position, it sort of shows that little confidence behind the guns behind him. And to be fair, when you've got Brendo on your shoulder, when you've got the swing onto CC as well, it's a pretty solid lock-in, and it does allow this. We set the problems behind the idea of getting intel onto frost mats and other traps. Well, that's less of a problem here for Fisho. They hit it with the EMP, the push up from underneath. They want to take onto KDS, gets hit by the air jab, and Handy has the cover. Oh no, they dive too deep. The grenade should get the end of the play. There's a team kill in the mix as well. Wettables is able to find one more out of that chaos. Out of losing the Monty, the prime of the push, they've been able to find the prime of their life. 3-2-2, Cybernado and Vidaking. All that is left, but so much time here for Bliss to rebuild.
I couldn't even tell you how Bliss have come out on top of that particular little jewel. I thought the air jab top red was great, but the cover onto the Monty on the side of FaZe was great. We'll see, though, if Bliss are able to convert this advantage. Perhaps not as strong as the previous round, but still great positions held. Information should be available. Wettables has reads and shots to come through. But those key barriers from the Izami just complicating things here for Bliss.
They have to ensure they take these engagements with at least 2-1 here. They have the man advantage, but that has slipped away from them before 50 seconds. And it seems like they're going to go for a pretty cheeky break onto the location of the players. They definitely had the ping onto one, but Cyber seems to have the full game. There's Wettables with his third for the round. There's the crossover. And back-to-back rounds leave us with Bliss 2-1 up.
Better work there from Bliss in the late round, but I would love to see a couple of replays from the beginning of the round.
What happened?
Yeah.
There was a team kill from the side of FaZe. I mean, the cross shot onto the Monty, that was a big mistake. And to be honest, for a lot of teams, that's, we have messed this one up. And then suddenly, Wettables, I think, gets a 2 onto the back of it. There's a team kill, and it's like, all right. We'll see here. There it is. Wettables onto 1. Either died.
Okay.
The sandwich of destruction. And he's the filler. There's the team kill. Trying to get Wettables.
I know. Isn't it insane how that little passage of play from Wet, that aggression to push through and find both, arguably, I guess, the third in quotation marks because of the team kill as well. That just completely changed the course of the round. But more importantly, with the advantage, Bliss were able to convert it, which was really, really good. Obviously, that final push was stalled out. Keeper barriers providing additional places for those defenders to play. But with enough information, the odd shoulder peek here or there, Bliss knew exactly where they both were. Disciplined in the way in which they approached the site. Rewarded in the end. And I tell you what, they're really putting up a good fight. Right, this is the #2 team in the world on SI points in FaZe. Irrespective of the maps and the veto, they should be expected, especially on defense, to get off to a good start here. So for Bliss, they'll take any round they can get.
To be fair, Australians have a habit of ruining FaZe's dreams. At the last SI that we had an Australian team, the people that sent FaZe home from that tournament in SI 2020 was an Australian team, was Fnatic. The third map, Clubhouse. Uh-oh, Brendo's gone.
I blame you.
I'm so sorry. They almost get the refrag, to be fair, and the breakdown of this is, well, we remember what it was like last time. We complimented how quick Bliss's cover and clear of the building was. In fact, at this point, all the FaZe players had been sent back. This time, FaZe stuck around a little bit longer. Took them a bit by surprise there. Cyber holding against the door, and they just said, a great read. Bliss likes to take this fast. Let's just be ready to meet them internally. With a bit of a peek back in. They're still going to keep the momentum going, though, even with the body down. They've lost Brendo, they've lost the fuse. I'm going to be honest, not the most integral piece of most takes, especially when you sort of still have the Grim, you still have the catch of the grenades, and the possibility of this, the man burning his way steadily through the hard hatches.
Yeah, I'm still not 100% convinced that the fuse pick is necessarily working well. Obviously, you do need a player posted up through blue for the late round push. Bliss can still fulfill that role. I'm sure probably Oud or maybe Wet Late will, fulfill that. It just means that another point of interest for the attack is now obviously going to be weakened with that disadvantage. So it's going to be tough from here for Bliss. For FaZe, they've done a good job in remaining disciplined through this portion of the round, though. They haven't exposed themselves to revert unnecessarily. They haven't bled any picks. Bliss in kitchen now with a minute on the clock, just dealing with a bit of utility. That's the Nitro dealt with by Fish. He has one more tin opener in the pocket, and he'll be very eager to open up this kitchen hatch, expecting a very similar pattern here from Bliss with the hatch drop. But again, keeping in mind, more challenging the 4v5.
That I really like. The grenade just on top of the bomb chassis to remove the claw from underneath. They didn't quite have the angle on it. Usually you'll break on the side, but Wet finds KDS in the meantime. 4 versus 4, but with 30 seconds left, they've got to get a little bit of a shift on here. We can see the spread once again of the Bliss players. They're angling and eyeing towards that default plant just in the tuck onto kitchen. With Oda getting himself down and a little bit hurt. They still need to push behind the back of Sage. He's tucked down onto short on the swing. The kit is dancing either side of it, but with 15 seconds, they need to draw some attention. The push down onto blue happens with the snap of Sage, and he gets one. Fisho gets some damage done with Sage getting the swing right into the back of Church. The last player's stuck, does win out on Sage, but Fish will get the plant down. A 2 versus 1 with the long corridor watch. Now, all the players are stuck here. What can Handy do? Handley with the keepers, gets one down onto range, does cut off that door, but they can still swing through. It works a little bit against his favor. The single player sat on the chassis, waiting for the swing to come in close. Handy has a very little amount of health here. He's got to make sure his engagements are clean and in his favor. Dancing either side, but again, this limitation makes things very awkward. And we find 3-1 Bliss with a plant to their name.
Yeah, some solid siege there from Bliss. I will say I was a little bit concerned that the util sync wasn't amazing. We saw some flashes down the blue hatch, and Fish didn't follow that up initially. There was a lack of util in the rest of the hands of the other attackers for Team Bliss, but still they were able to brute force their way into the objective. This was probably a key point in the round as well, where Wedables essentially gets a free pick from the hatch. That equalized things 4-4. Sage again posts himself down bot main, and the trade is delayed. That allowed the plant to go down. And despite there still being at least one keeper to help protect the angle from Armory, wasn't enough to break that cross, and Bliss do a really good job in closing out the round.
They've been able to get a bit of a distance here. Now, it is their map. It's where they sort of wanted to bring the fight itself. It's something where they set it on the desk. There's recent play from FaZe versus D+ on the opening day, which FaZe did win, but it gives them VOD review. It gives them things to work on, which, to be honest, if they find themselves going into bank without this to their name, things might get a little bit dangerous, because that was a map where things went away from them yesterday. So FaZe, regardless of the game and the prep that Bliss have brought against FaZe, you assume, based on the map pick, FaZe are more than likely to say, aha, we're doing the same thing on the second map itself. So the more distance, the more momentum, and the more pace we get here from the Australians on this attack half to carry them through to a quick second. Is that a Caveira? Is that the first Caveira?
It could well be.
Fresh!
Will it be the first interrogation, though?
Yeah, I'm hitting the alarm, so he takes off his headphones, stops playing Ranky to play and watch this. We might get an interrogation. I don't want that to happen to you. Oh, that
wouldn't happen to me.
No, I know, but, you know, I'm used to, you know.
There will be the cries of 25 million Australians, though, if it does happen.
Do you know whose fault it would be if it happens? If a Brazilian team interrogates the Australian teams? Xenox, because of his tweet last night.
Oh. Don't get me started.
Underneath, Cyber, the eyes are on you, and to be honest, if there's a player that can pull off impossible, sometimes you make it look very probable. Fish stacking up as the Monty in the similar position to where Tragedy struck last time. They're going to make sure that they don't get swung either side and not go as deep as they did, but remember where that Caveira was. If they come up the back of blue, where there was a strike, there is a dangerous position. The pings are onto Sage, but the calls are also there as well, so the Caveira won't be able to move just as intently as they might have wanted to. The detection outside, and what a take! Very clean. Fish pushes all the way up towards it. Cyber's got to act now, and he's able to get the down with the pistol. There's the end and the execute. But this is an alarm bells ringing. What do? Do you go for the Caveira? Do you continue with the push?
Well, I think they've elected to just push forward and ignore the Cav, at least for now, which could work if Bliss are able to overwhelm the site. Oda's playing flank watch down below bot main, perhaps waiting for the Cav to push towards that position. It does, of course, weaken the push up through red, but Bliss, if the comms are clear, should know that's exactly the case. 60 seconds on the clock, and on the topic of the case, Fisho has it tucked under his arm at the moment on the Monty, and we'll see how Bliss can unlock this objective.
This is the worry, obviously. As you said, that single player leaves it as a bit of a 3 versus 3 on the side of the site. The quick pocket play to stop them getting caught by the Fenrir. Genius. And there's Oda, though, unfortunately getting caught on the back. They lose their flank watch. And now the Caveira's free to roam and rotate their way back up, but Brendo has to watch towards the fight in the site. There goes one. There goes Wet, leaving the shield alone on the backside of Jim. They want to try and Gon 6 their way through. Fish is trying to draw as much attention towards the back, but with 20 seconds, they're going for the swing. Fish drops Trow's shield and the player as well. Vidikin goes, but Brendo goes down. A 2 versus 1 for the Monty, doing everything he can to swing and pop bullets, but it's not quite as precise as it might have once been. Oh no, all of this has been in 4K, and he's been caught.
Well, the risky strategy from FaZe pays dividends with that Cav off site, able to pick away one and then dropping Brando inside late. I think Bliss did an okay job in trying to tame it, but again, if you have the Monty on the board, that's one less primary gun, and I think they felt the effects of that late. Util as well playing a huge role in the late round. The mines from Fenrir made that push through really quite challenging, and once again, a similar array of key barriers to fortify that bedroom position made it difficult to flush out those defenders.
I'm not sure if that was the read through, but we saw on the death of Oda that they just shot an air jab above and then swung to the Nomad below. Whether that was Oda sort of trying to bait a play or take the player, I think it might have unfortunately had the opposite effect and given the game away, that they were about to try and swing their way up as the Nomad from the back end. Again, a single Caveira. It's that read I talked about a FaZe that they're very good at. They see where a push is coming from and they think of a creative solution to try and make things a little bit more problematic. It didn't quite work before, but well, we'll see where it goes elsewhere. Now, there was a message from Fresh about that Cav that I'm not going to read. I'll leave someone else to put a minute, but it wasn't complimentary.
I think he was just a little bit upset that there was no interrogation.
He wanted the interrogation.
I mean, the bingo card is quite close to being complete already.
Yeah, it's like 3 days.
Give it some time.
And we're pretty far along. Sage is hoping that someone goes for a peek on one of these windows with the long watch. Oda on the longer watch, all the way back end to keep an eye on CC window. There's quick pressure towards CC wall itself as it gets blown open. And blown open, wet! Another pick onto a player on the top of rafters just from the same rappel.
It's the same angle, and they keep double stacking this position as opposed to playing the solo Azami, yet they're not having the awareness that Bliss are just going to hold the line and punish them if they misstep. That is back-to-back misplays from FaZe on this particular objective in this particular position. But unfortunately for Bliss, last time they didn't convert and didn't really punish FaZe for it.
Okay, now you have a man advantage. Now you have a bit of emotion here, Bliss, but can you see if you can try and get it edged along the line? This was a site that you lost before, but it's something where, to be honest, you had a 5 versus 3. You had that eponymous 2 bodies that you could have tried to make have a little bit more of a synonymous nature with success. There's pressure coming in underneath rafters. It seems like they want to go for the same approach, the same take, and as the grenades bounce over, Fisho gets KDS, gets the cutoff here. Minute 30, 5 versus 3. We have been here before. Let's not go where you went to last time. They're going to eke and each their way in, just slinking around before they get caught, concerned about the ever-present idea that FaZe is going to swing it and shoot us in the face as more breach comes into the back. There goes construction. There goes a little bit more territory for FaZe.
So much time available here for Bliss. Will FaZe be able to lock it out again? Vidaking will use the first of his smoke canisters to try and create a bit of space for the defense. No! And it's a frost mat, the first dent in this attack for Bliss.
Oh, and the second time it's happened. They're at least able to get themselves back up. There's time to work on it, but obviously they'll be hobbling a bit. I think they might have been caught up. No, there was a player there, so they don't have to suffer the ill effects, but what they might need to do now is try and force their way through. Vidaking still has 2 smokes. We only have 30 seconds. That's enough time to generally play them against default. There goes the first, just to stop the rotate, and Brendo goes into Souls. Sage going for the kit down, but it's a flawless round to end a 4-2 for Bliss.
My heart is palpitating though. When Fisho launched himself into the frost mat, I was like, guys, please.
Not again.
Not again.
Not again.
But it was a lot cleaner from that point onwards. I think for Vidaking to be able to help his team in that round, get it across the line, had to land the shot, and the smoke canisters had to be on point. He didn't really do either, unfortunately. And that's obviously focusing in on him. It was very much a team effort, and a lot of it, again, a launch pad off the back of clearing rafters. This angle was almost identical from the one we saw from Brendo previously with the Mav combination, and Handy just walks straight into it again. You have a read there, Fish, and you get the kill, obviously, with the Grim Launcher.
Oh.
Didn't have a read on that, though.
He, like, double-dipped as well. There was like a, just swinging in. I've seen a lot of teams have horrible times with Fender in mind. Horrible times. They cannot get their push. Things scatter and fall apart. Bliss seem very confident breaking and smashing their way through this gadget.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Wet open up that con wall, obviously, before the final push, just allowing that additional avenue of pressure. He leaded into it very nicely and timed it well. Unfortunately for FaZe, all of their attention and focus on that rafters and that default push meant that they couldn't really keep an eye behind, and Wettable was able to exploit that. A flawless round though, and it very much feels like Bliss are in with a good shot here at the moment.
I'm very much enjoying this performance. Now the worry is, unfortunately, when they get to the 5th round, because that's where things fell apart twice yesterday. I'm touching wood.
Well, is there a world in which Bliss can get 5-2 and then escape the 5-3 curse?
I guess we might find out. If they can open up with a defensive hold, it's very likely. It's their first pick defense, wherever they end up. We're just in a very quick tech pause, as where I think we're just getting things rehosted and put back together, and the dancing goes up. If you're unaware of when you're in a tech, at this point, people cannot communicate verbally. But as we read in the rulebook, there's no rules against singing and dancing.
Really?
Yeah. Hap has the rulebook saved to his phone, which
That's a very Hap thing to do.
He got it so quick as well. I think that's part of his prep, is to reread the rulebook. And then he started talking about how when he would play Go4s and open tournaments, he would ask for MOS files and he would protest if they didn't deliver MOS.
Oh, Hap is that guy?
Hap's that guy.
Oh.
And his response when I said, oh, you know, so you were that sort of guy, he's like, well, yeah, hopefully they learn a lesson from it. I was just asking for the MOS files. So,
boy.
Hap is that guy. Now, a break in momentum at this point, I mean, let's be honest, it's kind of the perfect time because it's the halfway point, but also because they can't talk. FaZe will be stewing a little bit in the frustration of we should probably be a little bit more in control of this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes down to a mentality thing. If you can manifest some positivity for the second half, that stew effect can actually not be all that bad. But if you're in the FaZe camp and you're sort of stressing a little bit and looking at the scoreboard, oh, guys, we only got 2 defensive rounds on club against the Aussies. It's probably not great. That can, you know, double down in the negativity that they're feeling at the moment. So, I mean, they look pretty focused at the moment, and I'm eager to see what they can bring out in this second half. But there is a bit of a contrast to Bliss. They look, you know, far more positive, to be fair.
I mean, it's great. It's very relaxed. And to be honest, they've always been a very positive team. I think when teams from a region that doesn't unfortunately have as much ability to play against further agents, he just high-fived himself because I think it was Sage didn't high-five him. How appalling, Sage. Sorry, you find yourself having to go to these as both an understanding, we're probably not going to win it, but we'll learn as much as we can and we'll make sure we keep ourselves positive. That positive mental attitude can carry you a lot further and is probably one of the reasons why they've been able to bring the performances from online back to the locals area, absolutely demolish that, and then come back online and keep going to SIs and sort of getting that presence on.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? And I was speaking to the Bliss boys a little bit at breakfast the last couple of days and sort of just asking for their initial reactions to their first 2 performances. And I suppose the unfortunate thing for them is against Wolves, it was the Mowgli show. If that went to 3 maps, he was probably going to break the record.
If Mowgli wasn't there, it
would have been a very different story.
Would have been a very different scoreline.
And SSG, J90 as well. Huge standout player in that match. FaZe do not have that standout player at the moment, and Bliss look far more comfortable.
I think you can always sort of prepare for a team. What you can never prepare for is someone having a game of their life.
If you're having a live game, it's very difficult to shut that down.
He was in 2 maps, he was like 8 kills, 9 kills away from the 3-map kill record. He was unbelievably Mowgli yesterday, and you just can't fight that. You can't argue against it. All the players here at the tournament are the best in the world at this game. That's just how the nature of competition works. Occasionally one of them will just go above and beyond. And whether the stars are aligning, whether the pancakes were just perfect that morning, they woke up on the best side of the bed.
The pancakes are quite good.
The pancakes are very good.
They've been my go-to.
I've been eating a lot of pancakes.
Yeah.
And I am going to regret it when I get home and need to go back to the gym. The gym here is also very good though, so maybe I'm just making up excuses. What excuses will we find at the end of this? None so far. I just complimented the use of aggressively pushing against Fenrir and how they sort of, you know, you get a little pocket of time before you can't see anything. The play with the pocket EMPs, the swing into it and still getting kills is great. Can FaZe have the same confidence against it? Because as I said, I have seen a lot of teams struggle this tournament at getting into that smoke and suddenly going, uh-oh, and things start to shake and fall apart. The first fight is almost into the favor of Sty, but Brendo, he's blinded and surrounded and, well, yeah, what a close down that was onto the top floor. But there's Wack getting one back and he's surrounded as well. Every player from FaZe descended and decided the top floor was their territory, and the 2 players on the roam have been removed.
Yeah, unfortunate there for Wet. Had he have actually ran over towards Cash, he probably would have been a little bit safer. Instead, though, surrounded in that bedroom position. A good pinch from FaZe, who play into this roam setup from Bliss. Also very time efficient, and that can sometimes be the case on club where it's very difficult to clear these positions. You might eventually do it, but often it's very deep into the round. Not the case here. So minute 30 on the clock. Double hard breach is still up. Obviously the ability to create vert now may be a little bit compromised with Cyber in the grave, but I think FaZe can more than make up for that.
Now, how can the remaining 3 players on the core of the back line keep things in line with this? We can drive towards that potential 5-2. There is still, as you said, the hard breach. There's still the problems to be solved here. They might lose some of that destruction on towards kitchen floor, which, when you've got C4s on the board, it's a very dangerous bit of territory to take slowly. We start to hear the hatches fall and fumble, and instead of going for those soft breaches onto the floor, they're going for the roots and the rotations through, get themselves a quicker idea. This is built, these roots are on the idea of, well, let's see what the hold is. If we need to suddenly go, we can't make kitchen work, let's get over to blue. Well, now you've cut off that time of rotating by about 10 to 15 seconds. Bottom of main becomes a heavy-hitting barricade against anything that's held in, but how long can Fisho keep this territory?
Yeah, Bliss have elected to bunker down as opposed to aggress and try to disrupt this push. So I think a lot of it's going to come down to who they can pick apart and whether or not FaZe can make this push work. KDS will lurk through blue, and nobody holding this position for Bliss.
The drop comes round onto Moto. KDS, as he said, has been able to move in, but 15 seconds and one mistake could be the end of this round. They're staged with 1, not 2. Gets shut down in the crossfire, and Handy putting it into the 1 versus 3. Oda gets a great snap onto 1, almost finds the second. There it is! Suddenly a 1 versus 1, and Souls, he's going for the plant itself. He's only got a second, so he's got to stick it. Oda's getting the shift on of his life. He's able to just see the side of the fight. There's the second read, and no, cannot get a connection, but could not have been closer.
Souls is the kind of player that is never going to fake that plant. Oda just respecting him perhaps a little bit too much in the 1 versus 1. Additionally, didn't actually have a read as to exactly where the plant was going down. We saw that moment of hesitation, perhaps expecting a plant behind the bar or the black box, but it was next to the vending machine. Souls then forced to swing, and perhaps Oda probably still should have won the fight in the end, but it doesn't quite go his way. That 50-50 going the way of FaZe. It was a good start to the round for the attack, of course, clearing the roam in an efficient manner, and they had the man count for the late round. They almost slipped the final hurdle. Oda, a stacky 2K, but Souls too good with the S and G at the end. Just a quick little flick to the right, and FaZe win their first attack.
They kind of needed it. Let's be honest, although you're talking about, as you said, second favorite, second seed, they were in second place throughout this showdown as of this moment. It's still in Bliss's favor, but losing your first sight, your first round to something so close is going to be a little bit of a fight. However, it was almost a 1 versus 3 clutch. The 2 early bodies lost by Bliss means I'm assuming we're going to see a hold a little bit closer to their chest.
Well, I'm a little bit surprised that we're going to see the reattempt here from Bliss, but they'll look to double down on basement this time around. And as you said, it does look like they'll play their cards a little bit closer to their chest. It doesn't look like they're going for the expansive roam that we saw last time around. I can't help but feel that might actually end up favoring FaZe just a wee bit because they're so efficient taking the map. I mean, 30 seconds in and Cyber's already marching forward.
Like, hey, this is my floor. I have control of this now. Thank you for keeping it warm. This is where I live. They have, as you said, they've got themselves a lot more stuck. I think they're hoping that there's a bit of a late play from the side of FaZe, that what we'll have from FaZe is, oh, another 15 seconds as their attempt to go for the plant. You shake the tree in that moment, what's going to fall out is 1 extra plant attempt, if that. They got lucky in some books last time round. It was almost as close as it was because of how late it was, even with the pace of the control they got over the top floor. More fuse, and this one is going to be able to get its way through and try and remove anything, including a player that's inside there, but you'd be surprised if the player got killed by a fused charge.
That should be on the bingo card.
That should be on the bingo card. I think that's probably less likely than a grenade, even with modern nades.
Probably. Yeah, just being used to clear underneath these hatches, any potential utility down below, something like an F-Not mine as well, if that's opened up by Sage. Minute 30 on the clock, and FaZe are just chipping away at the checklist at the moment. Now up to the stage where they're looking to establish vertical supremacy and just ensure that Bliss are tucked in the corner. Doing a good job so far, Vidiking using the second, or second last rather, fuse charge, and that secondary hard breach as well deployed on the kitchen hatch. I think FaZe have opened up plenty of different avenues now that they can look to exploit. I don't know exactly what they'll probably lean into. Of course, they can go for a kitchen hatch. They could even go for like a motor drop kit if they wanted to. But for Bliss, they've played discipline. They haven't given away anything for free, and we didn't often say that about FaZe on their defensive half.
split theory coming through here in full taste. I've said the words, and they've said, let's try and utilize that as the break on towards the back end of Church. And look at this impact play. You're able to get the first two, but the middle wall will fall. And so does Sage. KDS is able to get the swing onto the first player. They're looking up and dropping down the hatch itself. They're inside the site and going for the default plant, but with the fight of Handy, being able to get Oda, it's a 3 versus 5. However, they're going to bite back and fight their way through. Suddenly it's over, though. Souls, they had the idea of an execute there from the side of FaZe, and, well, Bliss just could not hold back the wave of red that smashed down from Kitchen.
Yeah, it's a good collapse there from FaZe. I'm a little bit, I'm questioning a little bit the utility game there from Bliss, right? They didn't have like a Nitro or a Smoke to be able to deny plant, create a bit of space and try to disrupt that push. I suppose, again, they're looking to lean into probably the Legion-Fenrir combo to do that job for them, but then they didn't win the ensuing gunfights, which made it very, very difficult. So unfortunate for Bliss. If you lose back-to-back defense on, you know, a singular site, it can sometimes plant that seed of doubt now that for the rest of the half, things could be a challenge. And that was probably 10 seconds after I mentioned that Bliss didn't give away a pick for free, and that was, you know, the trigger point, the catalyst for the round. And you could see Bliss throwing bodies in towards Arsenal, trying their best to get a line of sight onto the planter, but the coverage from FaZe was just really, really solid.
I understand players shout things back and forth. I don't think anyone on Bliss can speak Portuguese.
Not that I know of.
Okay, so that the effect of shouting at each other there. It's always the worst thing about English being your only language is they can shout things in different languages you don't understand, and that becomes more threatening.
A little bit.
Because you're like, damn, that's like a flex. They're able to insult me in multiple different languages. It's a back and forth, it's banner, but it's heat because now we are even Stevens, 4 apiece. Both teams still have a timeout as well. Worth mentioning on this map. There was a tech and, oh, there's Sage. Unfortunately, just another victim here of this approach. KDS, I think 2 rounds in a row, has got that opening kill against the player. This time just, would you say, caught out of position there, top blue?
Yeah, I don't know if Sage in that instance is trying to get a claw down below. That may have been the case and he got trapped on an island. Either way, though, he should know the timing of that push. In fact, I'm almost certain he would know it. So a little mistake there from him, as the mistakes now starting to compound a little bit for Team Bliss. They're not even on their 5th round yet, so I don't know what's going on, because this has typically been the point where they've actually still been doing okay.
This is why they said FaZe were the toughest team. They only had to get to the 4th round.
Yeah.
Tiburao hasn't really been able to have the impact here against Maverick. As we said, Maverick has had a bit of an uptick since the most recent major, not entirely because of the changes towards the introduction of Tiburao, but also I think just the way the play and the approach onto sites, onto ideas and angles has changed a bit, with grenades getting the big nerf as well. You have to sort of approach things a little bit differently. No more like depth charging to remove holds and tech on the walls itself. Bit of return to classics, a minute 20. And the classic thing is FaZe peppering the site. Again, getting their openings, getting their angles, the spread. You have the single player now watching on towards the breach they've made. 2 players heading towards Garage. I'm not sure if there's pressure onto the back end as well. There it is, Souls. And I think that's Cyber too, the pair of them getting some work done here underneath, just holding the bottom of the red stair set and hoping someone makes a mistake.
Yeah, I don't mind the idea of establishing Tiburao on Garage rafters. He can use that utility from the Zodo canisters to slow the push here, and it is about to come through. Souls with the flashbangs over the top. The Nitro doesn't land, though. KDS, that's his trigger now to push forward, as Wet will be seeing White once more. KDS should be in for a free kill. He pushes through. Brendo, though, to trade, or at least attempt it. Smoke canister to come through, and that should confirm the kill. Not quite. KDS just pinging out that mat at the moment. 30 seconds for FaZe in what is effectively a 3 versus 3.
Didn't feel confident enough to swing, and fair enough because someone was watching it, but now those players on the split side have to come for the rotate. No! The position given away by the impact to try and get himself less known. Souls finding his way up the site itself. Not going to be able to get the player revived here. It's the 3 versus 2 onto the drive on the site. The first fight is won out by FaZe, leaving Oda once again in the 1 versus technical 3. The first is his to strike, the second go for the plant. The cover is towards his left. He's not quite sure though. Top red gets the triple. It's just the planter. He needs to fight the fight. No! Almost again! Almost again!
The heart, it's going to explode. Another 1 versus 1 going against Oda, despite a really good attempt. Had a great read on the 2 players that he was able to drop. Unfortunate once again for Bliss, and that will be their trigger for a tactical timeout. Now trailing 4-5, FaZe looking really good here on attack.
It's so... I mean, it's heartbreaking, I think, for the one side of looking at Bliss there. Twice the same player almost being able to pull out these huge, huge clutches against all odds. But also the only reason they're in the against all odds position is because FaZe are playing very sharp. These approaches, as you said, they're very intricate, very well put together as the timeout and the conversation come through from the 2 teams, both sort of similar things, because at that point you're thinking on the side of FaZe, look, we keep getting towards these late executes and they keep almost breaking it. How do we get ourselves that extra 20 seconds? You look at the second round in Church, decimating. Compared to the first round, we're almost clutched out. Will we see a second round here or a second round on the top floor? I don't know. But at this point from FaZe, they'll also be sort of saying, look, we can lock this out now before we get into bank, which might be a bit of a quick show.
Well, into round 10 then, and an opportunity for everyone inside the server, us as well, to sort of catch our breath a little bit. Because it's been a stressful game and we're only in map number 1. The Greys are growing, they are multiplying as we speak.
I can hear James screaming from here.
Oh, yeah, can only imagine.
10 seconds left.
We were talking about how much we love his dog earlier. I hope it has earmuffs. Ear protectors.
5 seconds left before
I hope so
insertion.
too. Well, it is quite late, so hopefully the neighbors as well.
That's true. I think legally he has to give a notice saying, I'm so sorry, I watch Rainbow Six Siege late at night.
Well, it's not even just I watch Rainbow Six Siege, it's I watch Team Bliss play.
I watch Team Bliss play late at night. You would understand. 5-4 FaZe, and they've been able to now have 3 attacks in a row. It's not been as clean sailing as the statistics might make you believe of 3 in a row with 2 plants, but this success is still etched on the board. They can build off the back of this just as much as Bliss can try and fight against it. The Flores and the Gridlock will make an appearance here. I'm not sure if it's just to control the space or cover some of the motion and audio of what they do here, but it's the first time we're seeing them approach the opposite side on the second story of Gym.
So the third unique objective here for Bliss after the double attempt down below and the previous round at CCTV. Jim we go, Fish contesting the breach, but unfortunately not really having much of an impact in terms of being able to stall that out. So some good work there from Souls. Maverick trick is pretty spot on. FaZe may well look to go quite direct here. They will of course be playing into the hands of Fish, who is a very strong anchor, arguably one of the best in Oath. Elsewhere, the team is extended and Oda currently inside of Garage, and he'll probably be communicating to the rest of the team that there isn't a whole lot of action on that side of the map.
It's like, yeah, guys, I mean, it's a very heavy push in, and to be honest, FaZe, they've often given the game that they're going to go with a bit of a wide push here. There's a single drone watching the play of Fish, who's got, well, I was going to say 1 canister left. He's going to hold it just to show everyone at home what that looks like. The blinds come through, and he's not quite able to sit there and stay, and he doesn't want to, because otherwise he'll get executed. Brendo here with the backup and support. They can try and restructure and rebuild, and it's a very dangerous game you're doing here, Fish, as he sort of dabbles with the idea of going further forward. Oda has 4 goo mines in pocket, and you wonder if he might try and get those anywhere close to stop this push. The first is starting to fall, and Fisho somehow retakes what is a sliver of hard territory in front of him. 50 seconds left, and more of a drive and more of a catch here. You're wondering what the push is going to be. Is Fisho's dangerous do-or-die position something that can work? The blinds come through. FaZe make a move. The shotgun is Fisho's, surgically executing the man from the top and sending him to sit down in the jacuzzi and catch his breath. KDS takes the scrap on the side, but it's finally sold to remove the man from the bathroom and tell him his job and business is done. 30 seconds, and at this point, FaZe have found themselves a little bit stuck against the single player with a lot of pluck. KDS is able to try and get an angle, but it's only to watch Souls die as the rebuild of the Architect is making things more traumatic. Barely any time left to try and break in, and I said that was the big question, and Oda might be the solution. Handy gets 1 more, they get the pick back up to ensure they have the 4 versus 3, but at this point, Bliss, they pulled themselves further away. Underneath might be the final play. Wettables, they know where he is, and they go for the drop. It's just Oda left. And what was almost the swing round, he doesn't have the read on where the plant is going through, and no! Things fall away.
That's really unfortunate for Bliss because that attack from FaZe for the most part was very linear, stacked outside the breach. It took until about 40 seconds to go before they had any pressure on the windows to actually punish Bliss, who were just flailing around inside of the objective. Obviously, then the push came through. Fish probably losing his life a little bit for free there with this peak right here. Then they're able to flood through. Oda didn't have any impacts or information down below for the plant denial. Vidaking also allowed to go deep, and Sage again caught off guard, and he was able to then double down for 2. Again, ultimately it doesn't look very close there for Bliss because it is the 1 versus 4, but I'm of the mind that it actually, could have flipped with a couple of plays here or there from Bliss going the other way. And you can see that frustration now really beginning to mount.
I mean, it's always that sort of position. We are omnipotent. We see everything. We can see where the players are. That late with what they had, Fish getting caught on the swing there, I mean, it's horrible. But at that point, when you're a smoke with the shotgun and you're able to get the first swing in that position, and you've got no canisters left because of what happened at the breach earlier, they at least did some work, but you sort of want the other Bliss members to maybe push back up main where they hadn't had any control. We had the 3 remaining players in that situation where one of them was in Logi, one of them was construction, and one of them was underneath. But without the impact, you can't really entirely stop that breach unless those fights are won elsewhere. And FaZe were just able to use that experience in that chaotic situation and sort of piece together the puzzle. 6-2-4. 4 rounds on the trot now for FaZe. And they've got themselves 2 swings at map point.
So into round 11 then. And FaZe once more will commit to clearing this roam established by Bliss. Last time, they were very efficient. Didn't take them all too long to clear out this phase and find a pick and actually win the trade game and give themselves the advantage. It's a triangle roam here. Wet, Sage, Brendo all over towards the CC half of the map. That allows Cyber to get free reign over towards bedroom. I'm intrigued to see, though, will Bliss actually look to flood this and contest it, or instead fall back through secret?
Well, things went wrong for them at the top floor last time, and as he said, their response has been to dedicate more players, more people up top. Unfortunately, Cyber is there too. Gets rid of Wet. Sage in a position where he can slip away. Brendo caught as well, and once again, FaZe has been able to remove 2 players on the top floor. There's a third. As Soul screams through the skull of Oda. With Fisho and Sage, all that's left now to try and hold on hope on this, their map pick on Club. The 5 versus 2. FaZe, a lot of time and a lot of utility to bring this into their play.
Perfect from FaZe. From what may end up well being a perfect attacking half to close out their opposition's map pick. We were a little bit scared for FaZe after the first half, off to a little bit of a slow start today, but they have more than made up for that here in the last few rounds. Fisho low. It's him and Sage to try and combine here and ward off this threat, but a 2v5, very challenging to win out as FaZe look to put the dagger in the hearts of Bliss on this map.
Fish against the world. But not for very long. A flawless to end, a flawless half from FaZe Clan. And that is, unfortunately for Bliss, a display of why the Brazilian roster is the 2nd seed and is the first pick place for a lot of people and a lot of viewers and even a lot of teams at this event. They were a little bit slow to start, and it is only the first map of the series. However, if they get any win, whether it's 1 map or 2, FaZe have confirmed themselves a playoff spot.
Ruthless from FaZe, and unfortunately Bliss unable to maintain their pressure on that particular map. It's a story as old as time at this event for Bliss, but they still have an opportunity to maybe rebound, but it's going to be a challenge.
It's a terrifying prospect. You're not only going up against one of the best teams, they found their form, and that is such a risk. And not only is it a good form, it's a form that leads them on to bank. We're going to go through a quick break before we're back with the desk to have a break of down of that.
If we could invent a time machine, I would go back 1 hour to watch that first half again and then walk away from the screen, because that was where things looked so damn good, Ollie. But unfortunately, after the first half, it went downhill.
Womp womp.
Yeah, we can see there from FaZe's celebrations after map number 1. It did go the way of FaZe, but not through lack of trying. I think Bliss did a great job in the opening half of that map, as you say. They did a lot of the hard work, Fox, but they weren't able to convert a lot of those rounds.
I know, I really loved the ability of the Grim being used out from Bliss, the way that they were pretty much locking down FaZe from being able to move and help each other on the trade on their attacks. But I just really thought that I'm going to start calling it the side swap curse. I really think as soon as the side swap, everything goes downhill for Bliss.
Yeah.
They show a lot of potential, but once the side swap, I don't know if it's the fear settling in. It isn't dependent on map or side. It just really starts to creep in the, you know, maybe it's the getting so close, but not finishing out.
Yeah, look, coming into this, Ollie, I think 23% attacking win rate for Bliss. And we went to Clubhouse, a map that only has roughly 30% attack win rate. Then they go on 4-2 half.
I mean, it wasn't just a case of Bliss doing fantastically well on the attack on Clubhouse. We've got to give props to FaZe as well, because FaZe did an equally good job. It just so happens that Bliss did
a better
first.
job.
They did a better job. It just so happened that Bliss did it first, and we weren't really expecting it out of Bliss as much.
Yeah.
But they did a fantastic job. I love the way that they were focusing on exploiting some of those players on the side of FaZe that weren't only over-peaking, but were getting a bit too overzealous. They did a fantastic job of just holding the line on that attack, utilizing things to really give themselves the advantage in the push. There were a couple of good occasions of Garage getting taken really nicely there from Bliss.
I've actually got a question for you, Fox.
Yes.
Could you tell me what the difference was between the attacks of Bliss and FaZe? Because it felt like FaZe were far more dominant. Even though we saw some incredible rounds from Bliss, FaZe were in more rounds, more often than not, had 3 or more left alive.
Absolutely. I mean, once the sides were swapped, Bliss actually only was able to get 1 opening kill. FaZe was doing a really good job at just staying alive, and I love to see that because we highlighted a player like Cyber, who was playing very aggressive in the past games, and he wasn't able to find too much success. But in this game, he actually was tidying up and just playing with his teammates and not allowing him to lose and give an advantage to Bliss, and just strengthening the whole dynamic of FaZe's attacks.
You can see it there. I think Cyber ended up with 3 and 1 on entries, so you know that kind of maybe paints a picture as to how things have changed a little bit from the pre-show, from the discussion that we had. Look, a close match overall, and I don't know how much we need to dwell on it. It's done, it's dusted. FaZe have now pretty much gone 1-0 up in the series. They're looking very, very confident.
FaZe looking great, you know, it's a classic FaZe, right? They are never out of the fight. They can go down a good number of rounds at the start, come out at a 2-4 split, and still come out there and perform. We've got some great highlights here from Bliss and just some of the ways that they were looking to get around on those attacks. And, you know, maybe a few times where it maybe just didn't quite work out, but their success in taking Garage was fantastic. One thing I would love them to do is start looking down on the floor. You were saying that Aussies don't like looking at the feet, and we saw so many frost mats getting brought in there.
Yeah. How many did ended up getting hit?
I think it was 2 or 3, but
yeah,
it's 2 or 3 too many, right?
They're definitely, I mean, you hear it, right? Like, you're going to hear it. You're going to hear it no matter where you go. There's always a pop and the, you know, like, there's pain. There's pain. Look, Wettables is in good standings. He's got a smile on his face. I guess you kind of have to. You are up against, technically, the second-seeded team coming into this. Speaking of the second-seeded, let's go to the second-seeded map. We go to Bank now, Fox. Does this make it even worse?
I don't think so. I mean,
okay.
Bliss has been very strong at the start of their games. It's just about converting it onto the half. They've been very good on their attacks and their defenses on Bank in their prior games, but against FaZe, it's just, you just can't let the ability to them execute just struggle against Bliss's defenses.
We've got to look at the Wolves game that Bliss played on Bank.
Yeah.
It was, again, surprise, surprise, a 7-5 to Wolves, but it was another occasion where we see Bliss come just so close to getting the job done and not managing to get it over the line.
Yeah.
This was actually, the Clubhouse that we've just seen was the least close map that we've seen Bliss play so far. So hopefully now going into that Bank, hopefully they're going to have something to show us.
Hope. That's what O's is built on. That's what I'm built on. And I'm hoping that Bliss can do something here, because otherwise they are looking down the barrel of a very scary final day here for groups. It's time to get underway with Bank. Emmy and Gus to run you through it.
They say happiness comes from many different avenues and Bliss is sure to follow. I think the only Bliss that can come right now for Manic and maybe a couple of others is Bliss getting a map. They were close and then everything fell apart.
Yes, and Bliss have struggled on the attacking side of Siege so far at the tournament, much like many others, but on the previous map in the series of Club, they actually got off to a phenomenal start. Unfortunately, their defense fell apart and they head into Bank. FaZe's pick, now trailing. As you mentioned, Em, this is a map synonymous with Brazil, so if Bliss want a chance at pushing it to a third, they're going to have to play the best we've seen so far.
It's a slightly tall ask. I think always going, look, we need you to play at your best, especially after the first map. Now, if these two maps were the other way around, and they were sort of coming into Club with a little bit more heat, you do wonder if things might have been different. Club itself was, I believe, statistically the most defender-sided map of the pool that we'd seen over the tournament until that last game, which shows how impressive Bliss were on their attacks. As you said in the break, it could have and maybe should have been a 5-1 half with that 5-3 attack going away from them. It wasn't, and even then, to face a flawless and then go into Bank where attacks can be very terrifying and FaZe start on attack. Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's the thing for Bliss, right? They're now having to defend once more, and they're already obviously struggling a little bit in that department, finding it very, very difficult over on Club. And yeah, I totally agree. Bank is a map where if you steamroll a bit of momentum and you have really good structure, which a lot of the Brazilian teams do, plugging all the holes on such a large map as a defensive unit is it's basically impossible. You have to try and optimize it as best you can. So I'm keen to see what Bliss bring into the server and perhaps how aggressive they're going to be, right? We think back to Club on Basement, for instance. There are a couple of rounds where they went for extensive roams. They were a little bit mixed in their result, especially the last round, it fell apart. But Bank's another map where you could go for something similar, right? You think about like an open area extension, post up Oda in that position. I think he was farming SSG there the other day. Fox was mentioning it on the desk. So if he can fire up and the others can play around it, we'll see if they're able to push FaZe back.
Well, you sort of pointed this out as well between the break, is Oda was playing those roam positions on Clubhouse, but FaZe were just ignoring him.
Yep.
They were like, there's a guy over there, and they're like, okay.
They just ghosted him.
We'll just leave him over there. And here you can cause a lot more trouble, as you said. You can get more directly above it. I love the sort of pattern of rotation downwards. You can have, you're looking at some hatches and some hops with some really great synergy, whether you're going down the core of the map itself right in the middle, or you've got square down into blue hatch, or you've got lobby hatch if it's already been falling. There's just problem plays that mean you have to pay attention towards those loose players before they land on your head within 5 seconds. FaZe, how many seconds until they get some control of the map itself? They were very quick at getting their first feet into the foray of the top floor of Club, but Bank is a different space.
They got the dogs out.
Them dogs, they were out. In the same way, I mean, kick the flip-flops off, Carter. We're in for a ride.
Yep.
I feel like I shouldn't out the casters that enjoy getting the dogs out in the green room, but
Nothing wrong with that.
I've seen so many other casters' feet this week that I'm sick of it.
Speak for yourself. Can't say I've been paying that close attention.
Welcome to your first SI. this is the atmosphere. A minute has gone and all Bliss players are still standing. A bit of a rarity from how FaZe has done their approaches before. Cyber, with his own foot a little bit under a bit of pressure there, does get the first fight. Wet is opting to take the drop, but Cyber finds Fish as well, and I mean, they tried to keep themselves a little bit close to this engagement. Now it's just hatch control and FaZe in control of it.
Yeah, an obvious weakness there from the defensive structure of Bliss, and FaZe exploiting it in through electrical. And despite the goo mine from Brendo, not enough to allow Bliss to win that opening duel. But Brendo finally does produce a response for his team. So a 3 versus 4. But of course, the nature of this extension and the hatches being opened up, it means that it expedites the push for the attack phase. Don't have to worry about opening them up. Handy now, over towards main. Brendo get his second in the round. Oh, almost. They trade blows. FaZe, though, retain their advantage.
I do love how they seem to keep stepping in. You can see that Bliss want to make sure that FaZe can't quite blaze into the position of power and just keep threading through them. Do not turn your backs towards the sort of corner and hope for the best here. The big rotate that comes through from the 0. Looks like they're trying to angle up to the opposite side as Vidaking goes towards the default plant spot here. They're trying to just get the calls, get the cover so the cams can't see them. There's a bit of the audio cover too. Brendo is blind on the back line. 40 seconds and, well, there's the end of the round. 1 off for Flawless, but still, there's that terrifying attack I talked about.
Yeah, unfortunately for Bliss, the round was pretty much lost in the first 30 to 45 seconds, allowing to push through open, not winning that critical one proved to be very costly. And you can't be slipping up against FaZe on a map like Bank, because FaZe will be ready and waiting to pounce. Here is a replay of that opening engagement. Cyber actually didn't have the initiative. It was Oda who's been having some mixed results throughout this game. And then the secondary trade doesn't land either. So again, blow after blow against Bliss, who aren't converting what I would describe as favorable positions, favorable moments. And most of those moments have been big. So unfortunate for them, but for FaZe, a great kickstart to Bank.
I mean, Cyber taking that first fight with the goo mine in his foot, if it had been, 10 more damage to his health in that situation, the goo would have finished him off before he was able to pick it up. Getting it out and then swinging into the second fight with the premonition that he had there just sort of shows that 6th SI experience we were talking about before. The fact that he's been competing at this level for that long, I mean, terrifying. The step forward here as we go to a slightly different site, find our way. And actually the core, once upon a time, this was heralded as the second strongest site for a lot of teams, or the third. Now it's fallen out of favor a bit, Talos.
Bliss must be cooking up something. It looks like perhaps they're considering a jump out here onto that rappel. Oda's close by an airlock, and I don't think Cyber's consciously anticipating it. FaZe do not have a read. No 0 in play, so the ability to gain information may be a little bit more challenging. Oda goes for it, but Vidaking rounds the corner. A good little bait there from FaZe, and Bliss, unfortunately, now trailing 3 to 5.
It is one of the few jump outs you can actually do on this map and the positions you can go for some pressure here. It makes it a little bit known. You probably get 1, maybe 2 swings at it. But obviously FaZe have the prediction saved. Great transfer. Either side of the pillar to add a little bit less structure towards FaZe's approach here. They've once again been able to turn a 5 versus 3 to a 4 versus 3, but he doubles down. Gets a second for the trouble as Wet hangs around in stock to have a look at the paper hand. He might be about to find his end, and he is. Fish gets a little bit of a taste there on the top floor, and now, what a turn of fortune here. 3-2. They have a lot of time here, the remaining 2 players of FaZe, but what can they do with it, with the utility that they have?
Yeah, Bliss love playing these sort of top floor extensions on Bank, and oddly enough, in the OS League, it can sometimes actually be to their demise because they're overcomplicating it and attacking teams don't try to break it down. This time, though, FaZe have targeted it. Sage steps up with 2, and then, of course, Fisher taking up top square, able to find the 3rd. So some good work there. But Vidaking's still up, and we know that he can be impactful. Souls as well. 2 unanswered kills to kick off this game. So we'll see how they go. They have 60 seconds to work with here. I do wonder how much information they Bliss have. You can see Brendo flicking those Valkyrie cameras. Perhaps there's one inside of lobby and Bliss have a read on this push.
Salma gives them an angle and a route through onto it. Still a decent amount of time at this point, but they're not being handed anything by the players of Bliss. We're just sort of keeping themselves sitting pretty on the back line. We hear the Nitro ripped and torn. It stops the approach, but Wet does almost get caught out in the crossfire, and there it is. Swung on the door. Now it's a technical 2 versus 2 at this point, but with 30 seconds, the onus is still on the idea of getting the kit down and planted, which is going to leave you, well, just hoping and watching for a cover that has now been covered in bullets. They have to crawl away. They're swinging ready on the last door, and there it is. 1 apiece, and we have our first Bliss defensive round for the day.
Yeah, and it's 3 kills from Sage, who can be a big, impactful player for Bliss. Didn't have a fantastic clubhouse. A lot of it came down to some really unfortunate timing, and, you know, Sage can be like that sometimes, but he's tidied it up here on Bank. Good aggression on the top floor from Bliss, and it finally feels like their extension off-site, whether it be on club or now on Bank, has finally worked.
Yeah, once again, losing the opening 2. players. It seemed like they were fully aware of that jump out. Again, there's not too many that you can do on Bang. You sort of have those windows. You could go for a run out the top garage or bottom garage if you're feeling very excited, as they seem to be on the other stream. I'm not sure if that is it GK, NIP?
NIP, yeah.
All right.
And GK took map 1.
They did. So, FaZe, they're making sure that they keep Brazilian's pride right now in this showdown.
For now.
For now. I mean, we still got 1, maybe 2 maps to play for. If we get through this, we find ourselves heading to Labs. Is that a good Bliss map, do you think?
Well, I mean, they've been attacking really well, right? And I think the fundamentals on Labs are pretty cool. You know, breaking crossfires and clearing positions. It's quite a linear map in that fashion, so I think they have every chance to push FaZe on Labs. Unfortunately, though, it's going to be tough here on Bank. It's going to be really, really challenging. But they at least found something. Round number 2, and now transitioning into the 3rd. We'll see if FaZe want to continue to play into the roam game from Bliss. Sage is top floor. Wedables as well, alongside Brendo. So that same roam triangle that we saw on Clubhouse being employed here on Bank.
It's a clinical removal here of the utility. Those Valkyrie cams, the black eyes are being spotted out pretty continually by both drones and obviously the IQ, and then send in the Twitch. It's that sort of, we know it's a problem, we have to deal with it first before the second problem of us appearing shows up. And I do love this approach from FaZe. They pay a lot of respect towards the utility game that's ahead of them. Bliss, they've approached it in a slightly different way from this showdown so far, in which they'll sort of hit it head on, whether they're entirely aware of it or not. In the case of a couple of Frost mats, they haven't been. They still seem to be able to have a couple of pocket plays to pull it against it, but FaZe just seems so much more rapt and attentive towards that, which, whether it's something that just slows them down a bit or Bliss expected to hold on to it, that's a different story. This is, again, the longest we're sort of getting without this first engagement, but usually when I say that, we have one almost immediately after.
Well, it's taken until the midpoint for FaZe to actually get bodies in towards the map. So that's probably a win for Bliss. But they now need to win these engagements, and the brothers connect at Sage and Brendo. And there's no trade in sight here for FaZe.
Cyber, he's going for the swing round onto a janitor's closet. That's a very small amount of space here. There might be a hatch to get the drop, but he didn't quite see the player towards the long desk and somehow wins it out before Wet gets the back end. 3 versus 2. Bliss just hold on to that man advantage, but they're still dicing with death and danger. Remember where the site is, but you have to keep some sort of concerned effort onto that verticality. That's why they take the drop, because there's still the chance of putting the site down, and that will turn a 2 versus however many into just a single player doing their best to watch and cover against all the utility left, including the 2 C4s either side. Tucked all the way behind the bomb chassis. They've reclaimed some of the power, and the power is onto the player, but there's Sage once again popping up before being popped down. Souls with a sliver of health, and a goo mine in his foot is battling back and forth on a single hard wall. They're gonna breach it, make the position awkward for Wet, and force the motion to have to come around the double door. Pre-fired, but Wet gets the connection. 2 in a row.
Really good roam there from Bliss to kick things off. An equally good response, though, from FaZe to bring the round back. Good work from Wedables. He hits a late trade on the top floor, then disciplined late in that piece. Very, very low. Very, very close. And I tell you what, if Bliss had have lost another clutch, I would have been right upset.
That's it. That's the headset.
But they finally did it. They finally did it. And now a 2-1 lead for the Australians. And that will be a confidence builder for the boys.
I mean, the fact that they've sort of gone in from club into this, into sort of going against the own problems that they had. They almost pulled off the 1 versus 3 clutches. They were almost on the wrong side of that this time round, but now they are the successes. The energy is rebuilding for a team where we talked about how at the halfway time last time, they were great energy when they were winning. And then it's sort of, you could see the frustrations coming into FaZe and coming into pass, because although you're up against the toughest enemies, you still want to beat them. And you still have to keep that mental game, because as soon as you think you're going to lose against them, you're probably going to lose against them.
I think that can be said for, any game, any matchup in Siege, right? If you think you're going to lose the match, you probably will.
Not worth playing.
And that even breaks down to a round or an engagement. If you think that you're probably going to lose a fight, that can be a big difference maker if you don't have the confidence to, execute a play, or the confidence in a teammate maybe to support you, or whatever the case may be. So good work from Bliss. The triangular roam on the top floor, it works out. Good work. We go to top floor, though. Very challenging site for the defense if FaZe are ruthless, which we are anticipating. Traditional lineup, though, from the attack, so there shouldn't be too many curveballs for Bliss to deal with. It's all about just having a read, and they do have the Mirror and the Valk in tow to help facilitate that.
I actually like the fact that Bliss have been playing away from the more sort of default takes, more sort of default structures. They obviously played Lockers first and lost it pretty handily. And since then, they're going towards these sites that I say are the less common. Obviously, Tellers, generally, I think the lowest picked. Open is the next, and here up towards CEO. There's probably more familiarity. I think for Souls, that drone might be moving. And we'll see if there's a little bit of a read-through. The players themselves are still, it's just a little bit of a broken drone as Cyber pulls there further and further away from a stock wall that slowly gets a little bit of a hole. Angled through, nothing more than just the pressure of saying you cannot play the vending swing anymore.
The Valkyrie camera dealt with by Cyber, so he's now confident that he can push forth. There's a ping down below! Oh no! Oda caught off guard, 1 and 4. Cyber not traded, but it is still a 4v4.
Yeah.
Midway point of the round, it could be worse for Bliss.
Just able to pop the C4 in the swing, and the ping came a little bit too late. Cyber, if anything, is probably beating himself up for being a couple of steps out of pace here. Smash the plant, get it out of the way, because the breach in the pocket is going to be where Souls is. The upside down rappel outside the window secures some of that space around Janitors that's forcing them back towards the long desk, towards the reception area. And look at this control that's coming around onto the hefty sort of push here from the eastern front. They are just looking for a tiny sliver behind maybe the A-bomb chassis, behind the desk itself, as Bliss seem to have this habit of peeling away. They want to try and keep their life and go for a retake, which generally hasn't always been the most successful. Sage, though, as you said before, is starting to pop into life and into gear over this map as it gets further and further into the series. It's a gun that you need to pay attention to. KDS almost caught out from what is a pretty standard swing onto the front of the lobby as Wet has more than enough time to come back round. They finally shut out Sage inside stock, but the trade against Cyber does come together. Once again, a 2 versus 3 here with the single player down at this point. You're going to see if the remaining Bliss players can hold on. The crossfire and the swing from Brendo goes wide. Behind the desk, Souls is the CEO. He's able to get one on the pop, but it's put right back down by Wet. And we now have a 3-1 situation for Bliss.
Yeah, good work from Bliss, and I totally agree on the point that they can sometimes perhaps peel back a little bit too much and not keep the front line in play to contest FaZe, but Sage reaggressed over towards that stock hallway shield, which never got cleared, and that made it quite challenging for FaZe to get that positional advantage top square. Wedables as well was allowed to flank through lobby. I suppose there mustn't have been a drone there from FaZe, or if there was, it wasn't called effectively, and that was to try and break the cross on the main rappel, which can often make it challenging, of course, to reaggress and get forward. Brendo, Sage's brother, takes a book out of his page out of his book, a book out of his page. Pushes forward.
Page.
Obviously.
Things are upside down in Australia. You guys wouldn't understand.
Obviously confirms that pick, and yeah, good work from Bliss.
I mean, what a return to form for the defense here, and I love the swings back in. As you said, I love the rebites of aggression, the retaking the territory inside stock itself. There's some good sort of confidence coming through. It is an intricate map to attack, and it's a map that can work well with sharp attacking teams. So there is still the second half of this map for Bliss to play, but 3 here after what happened with FaZe having the momentum leading into the first round of this, which was almost a flawless. I think only a single kill went against them. You have to give credit here to the Aussie boys for getting their heads wrapped back around this bank. Cyber, he's heading towards the top floor. He's been able to, again, if we're going to talk about Sage sparking back into life, he's been showing up more. He came into this day as statistically the lowest rated player for the FaZe team since he's started to find those sparks of, we're up against Cyber that everyone's had at multiple tournaments.
And I'm interested to pick your brain a little bit, right? Because you were mentioning heading into this that for FaZe, this should be almost a guaranteed win.
Yes.
Is this a case of Bliss actually playing quite well, or a FaZe just maybe finding a little bit difficult to find their feet?
I think FaZe have got themselves in a little bit, not overconfident, but I think they've sort of, you look at how they played club, a lot of it was, we're winning our ones. We're winning these aggressive gunfights. The swing there onto stock is a great example. They were said, look, we'll leave you here and you'll win if they go against you. They're not quite expecting these motions that things like this. Wet going in. They're taking these extra steps. Instead of playing the sort of let's pull back and peel back that Bliss are doing or sit and hold, suddenly FaZe is having to sit up in their chairs and get into it, and they're finding these little pieces and puzzles pulled away on a map where, if that happens, as you said, it's so intricate to go for the attack. They've now lost their Zero and their Sam Cam, so KDS is going to have to step in and swing, but they still can't get that player out of the position. They have a body advantage at this point, and Wet is going to sit around and stick as his escape route is opened for him, and he's able to get out of there. But I think FaZe, they're just having to make mistakes like that, because as Bliss suffered on Club, their eyes are a little bit too locked on to what the other players are doing right now.
Yeah. A decent take from FaZe, perhaps not as proficient as last time. A lot of it was on the back of Cyber getting some quick control and Bliss scrambling to try and formulate a response. The cap can from Oda does just make things a little bit more interesting though. Flashed out, drop to come through, and the 417 will clean him up. No support from Bliss, understandably so, deeper in towards the objective itself. Wedables is actually repositioned though, up above, but he falls.
Oh yeah, he got spotted and he spots them back! I mean, they had the read on where he is, but not entirely where he was going. KDS tries to chase tail, but the only thing he sees is the trails of bullets going past. And this is the answer to your question, my friend. Bliss are playing much better, but FaZe did not expect the stack up and the knock back down of a team that's sort of pressed against the wall, and a confidence of Bliss is, let's send it.
Yeah, I suppose in the chaos of FaZe electing to pivot to more of a default server push, you know, flushing out Oda. In the meantime, Wedables has been allowed to push back up main. FaZe have a Zero. FaZe have a Twitch. Default drones. Where are those? Where is that information? You should always have a read on the defense pushing back up main stairs. Now, I don't know if Wedables had counter info to then drop the hatch like he did and get the 2K. That may have been an element of luck, but he had a good read, great game sense, and he's rewarded.
You make your own luck.
100%.
You make your own luck here, and I think, again, the sort of moment, you don't want to just sort of point towards the specific of a cap can trap. At the very beginning of this game, when FaZe were playing at the strongest, the thing I complimented them on was how well they were clearing utility, because they were. They were comboing the sort of IQ alongside the Twitch. They had every single read on what Bliss had put and placed around the map itself, from Valkyrie cameras to traps to whatever. They weren't falling for any of those games. And now suddenly they're sort of having to adapt and change things on the fly, something that they can be very good at, as demonstrated inside Clubhouse to have responses before. But they're missing those little tricks, those little moments of a team that, as we said at the very beginning of this, how do you play against a team or a player that is playing some of the best that they've played on their day? This is that moment right now. Is this bank, the stars have aligned a little bit for Sage especially, but Wet, who's now sitting 6-2 and has a huge bout of confidence that they just did not have in any of their motions really on Club.
So the Monty then for round 6, and typically this would signpost a push through electrical in towards that B objective. We've seen teams like G2 from EU stack impacts to counter that. Not the case for Bliss, but it's not even the case of FaZe pushing through electrical. Vidaking playing contact up in this janitor hall position. Elsewhere, Oda lit up. That's over towards Archives, but all action, all eyes on this little Monty interaction as FaZe look to unlock the setup above. Nitro Cell with Sage up close. A lick of damage. This is an awkward little standoff.
I mean, he's doing his best to hold on, and fair play here against the man that is pretty much infallible when he's right in front of you. There's been scratches of damages either side. Oda has suffered the most of it, but Cyber's taken a bit of a blow as well. Sage is still sitting on, but with the stop rotate and almost a very clever bit of explosives underneath, they were baiting him into it. Sage somehow takes and tears the head off the player on the swing of stock. They are doing everything they can to step back. The trade comes back in from KDS on towards Wet itself. The scan comes out. As I said, the fear, the caution that needs to be played towards whatever is proposed and put in front of them. Oda, he's still pretty heavily damaged, but then you look across the opposite end onto FaZe, and 3 of them have suffered big scrapes and big blows. Vidaking still being scratched and bit at from below. They cannot find a breath here because Bliss are refusing to give them space to breathe.
2 players off site at the moment for Bliss, and Cyber now looking to flush Oda out. He's directly below, and that skeleton key may well expose his position. Bot square. Brendo as well, but he'll make his way up main. 30 seconds then on the clock. Can Bliss hold on while Oda can't? Will the other three be able to step up?
It's so tight for the timer, and we've seen this be the punishment factor before. Brendo has a bit of the width and the wiggle room. We talked about the height of rotations, where you can go and what you can do with it. As Cyber goes down, there's Sage traded off. They know about the beepers read, though. And FaZe finally stem the bleeding. And we find ourselves in the 4-2 half.
Yeah, a little bit more of an unconventional use of the Monty on that particular site from FaZe. And I think Bliss, to their credit, actually did an okay job in sort of dealing with it. Sage perhaps lacking a little bit of support that may have made that a little bit easier. Let's say that Nitro actually had have killed the Monty initially on Jandor. Could have been a little bit of a different story. But FaZe, to their credit, through the mid to late round, ensured that they flushed out and were aware of the double roam that Bliss still had employed, instead of, just looking to directly hit side and ignoring it. I think it worked really well. So 2 rounds for FaZe, 2 attacking rounds. Again, probably okay. For Bliss, they've got a decent platform though, I think, for players.
I think the thing about bringing the Monty as well in that situation is, for me, that is the testament of everything I'd said about what things weren't connecting for FaZe. They could not get control of Bliss's front line. They couldn't get that little sort of wall that they could push behind, so they brought the wall that they could push behind. They kept on utilizing it to just sort of force the play of Sage to sit still, because controlling those players before proved nigh on impossible. And even then it was close to straight, but I think them getting through now onto their preferred half of their preferred map, as weird as it is to say, this is where that pressure comes back to Bliss, who were in a 4-2 split on the opposite sides last time on Club, and now they got to see if they can try and bring some of that attacking magic back that they had on that previous map. Sorry, we're posing for a photograph. It's the halftime photograph.
It's tradition.
I'm sorry, we're talent.
We love ourselves.
Do you ever see, when I was first referred to talent when I was given a job, this is the official name. We're not saying that we are the talent, we're not that ego-y, but it does feel a little bit ego-y when you get a badge that just says talent on it, or talent.
Well, it's talent, it's not talented.
Yeah, I know. Cyber, he's quite talented. Takes care of Oda. As I said, a lead-in player. He's definitely stepped up a lot. Fisho, he's up towards the top of Banana. He's gonna just get some width here. The castle walls are going to make things a bit awkward, and that's worse. Cyber strikes from underneath, and there's a demonstration of what a C4 can do to a Monty. FaZe say after not quite giving them the same win last round.
Yeah, this attack has petered out before it's really begun. Thought that was a wallbang the other way, but it's Sage elsewhere to fall. KDS with the UMP. Brendo's trying his best to fight his way through top square, and he does have weatables alongside. Still an extensive roam, though, committed to by FaZe, keeping in mind that this is a basement defense.
Deploying drone.
But I get the sneaky suspicion that we're probably not going to actually see the objective in this round if FaZe play it well. A lot of utility stacked on the top floor. Bliss will try and grind their way through the round, but it's going to be a challenge.
I mean, it's a horrible bit of utility to get through there. You think of that swing, doing it blind, nightmare. And there is, suddenly a trade out. Either of them takes either of them, but Cyber's done his work for this round. Weatables gets the first, but unfortunately, so much had already been done against them. I said it, Cyber, he's definitely started to pop off a lot more today than he has previously in the tournament. A very strong first round there for FaZe, but we said exactly the same with the first round of this game entirely. So there's still a lot to play for. Just giving hope.
Hope, cope.
Belief. No, I think it's a very strong round for FaZe. Again, these are the moments where you go, this is how FaZe plays. The Valkyrie performance. Valk on this map is, for me, one of those, like, it's peanut butter and jelly and jam. It's cheese and crackers.
I'm allergic to peanuts, so maybe just bread and butter for me.
Anne is as well.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a thing.
It's not really a flex though, is it?
No. I mean,
I could die at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
I have that hanging over me. The Grim Reaper.
Could be worse. Hap is allergic to alcohol.
Well,
He can't even.
He's not an APAC fan, so he doesn't need it.
No, but he is
10
Dutch.
seconds to
Fortune 3. Bliss. Bliss, they still have this advantage. The swap towards the Oster, the Capitao. They're going to play for themselves a little bit of a smoke plant here. You know, you can get those common sort of drives across the top end. You look towards what the site is. Obviously, with CEO, you're thinking, okay, well, they'll probably try and get control of top square, reach open to the wall, just set that in by the cover of the windows, as long as you keep the cover of the windows. Unfortunately, they lose the E1D. The Lion is gone. Handy. Horrifying things have been done towards the player that was entering, by the looks of it, on the lobby.
Yeah, I mean, pretty old school strat here from Bliss, assuming, again, they're looking to open up that northern wall, the right wall into CEO, sneak in, get the plant down, trying to mitigate, you know, the ability for FaZe to deny it. It's been an unfortunate game for Oda, not to obviously highlight it all too much, but from a 1.1 rating at Copenhagen, best on the team, to a 0.88, 5th on the roster at Atlanta. Obviously, underwent a bit of a role change with Wet coming in, but in this particular matchup, the entry duel's not going his way. Now, it's not the worst operator to lose in this instance, but obviously just losing that player in general on the attack makes it very, very challenging, and it means that you cannot make any more mistakes.
And it's also noise. You often think about EU1Ds to obviously cover the motions of defenders moving, but if you're swinging on a rappel, the difference of being able to hear it cleanly or the difference of trying to hear it under a French man with a very angry drone in the sky is awkward at best. Here's the breach onto that wall. As I said, the default plant spot stuff has otherwise gone a little bit uncontested, but his army can make it a challenge, is the easiest way of putting it. Sage underneath could try and pop a bit of an impact below the feet if they can get a read on where they are or where they might be. They're also keeping in control on no one being underneath. With the C4, we've already seen that be devastating before. There's two options for them to play against it, and unfortunately pocketfuls of smoke as well. So what needs to be cleared here from Bliss is still, unfortunately, a lot of structural work left to go.
I mean, this attacking setup has taken so long to prepare that I have every belief FaZe know exactly what they're going to go for at this point in time, especially if that Osa has been spotted out. So they should have a read, and FaZe is just about executing that denial.
First canister comes against them. Vitter is pushed a little bit further away, and there's the swing onto the back of it, and there's the cover of the bolts. They're trying to get inside, and there's again, a little bit more of the pressure of the smokes itself. It's a bit chaotic at this point as Fisho goes in with Brendo and Wet finding one apiece. The breach is there, but he needs the smoke to clear, so he goes for it, and Sage goes for another for his tally. Vitter King and Souls, suddenly all that's left. This feels a little bit akin to the strikes of FaZe before the shotgun doesn't quite rock the rotation of Sage here. And now the 3 versus 1. They've been in this position before, the wrong side, and they won out the clutch this time, last time round, but Souls is the man to try and stop it, and he cannot. Broken the trend of things going wrong in the second half. 5-3 now.
Yeah, an old school strat. I don't think I've actually seen that one, you know, executed in an official for quite some time, at least not in OS.
Do we call it a successful execute? Because it did end up just being, oh, we got to send it, lads.
Well, I guess the entire push revolving around the Osa, which ended up ultimately dying, I guess, is maybe a small little asterisk, but that round highlights just how difficult top floor is to defend with only one person on the rappel. Like, Wedables is holding that cross and he gets the kills. Sage obviously popped off as well, but it's so challenging to get in a position to deny that plant. Sure, you can get the long angle from Banana, but once that diffuser rotates, you know, behind the chassis, you have to push forward or you have to have some kind of projectile. FaZe late in the round didn't have it because they burnt it against the Osa. So not too bad from Bliss. Sage was a little bit lucky on that particular fight against the shotgun. So
a shotgun a foot away. Do you know what the difference is? Belief. If you believe in that English shotgun, it can get anybody from any range.
Well,
as soon as that...
If it's an English shotgun, it's just shit.
Yeah, well, you know. As soon as that... hey, name an Australian gun in the game.
Attackers are moving to
does the Mozzie launcher count, kind of? Nah.
No, unfortunately not. Rip. Is that what... You could cosplay a pretty good Mozzie, I think. You're growing the tash out. You've got... Yeah. I thought
you were going to say Gridlock.
No, that's...
I probably don't quite have the physique.
You need at least to come like another foot of height. I'm sorry.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not that short. I know I'm shorter than James, but geez.
Yeah, well, everybody's shorter than James. James was the basis of Slender Man. He has to duck when he goes through doorways inside. He's like, hello. You know the famous story, James and the Giant Peach?
I have heard that one, yeah.
Yeah, he was based on that, but they got the words in the wrong order. Giant James's Peach.
Drone activated.
I can't say I've looked at DevMarder's Peach.
Bliss, living it up, 5-3. Both teams still have their attack timeout. You assume if you find yourself sitting on map point on bank, we will cut towards the opposite end of it and get it. Cyber does go down first. They cannot quite execute the destruction as of yet, and they are right in the core of it. They're crawling to safety. Fish is trying to get the end of it, but there's the bait. Handy has it, unfortunately, led into a bit of a trap there. They saw the down player. There's the trade out as Brendo does find one elsewhere, though. So Cyber is still in no man's land, just bleeding all over the shop and the floor. Handy, he's saying, come closer, come closer. I've got you covered, and Vidaking's here as well. But now there's no one really on the site. The stage executes one more, and Wet gets one more. They're going for the plant, guys. Oda's on the back line. They've had to try and retake the site itself. They fully sent to get Cyber, saving Private Cyber, but unfortunately, the Australians were filming a different film. On the site itself, the long-range fight is handy. It's not quite handy enough with that gun to get the catch on the player inside the small box. The cover of the vertical as Brendo gets the one on the site. It's still down. The Vidaking once again gets one, and a little scrap and a scrape with the remaining, but with Amonsi on the site. And one more player to get through here, either side. We are sitting on map point here.
Well, there was a tea party in Towers and Bliss were not invited. A 3-stack there from FaZe. Now, the initial play to bait the res was great. I think it worked really, really well. Now, we have the privilege of the overhead off stream. We can see that there was no one really around that area. I don't believe Bliss had any line of sight or any ability to actually stop that revive from happening. We then go to the free cam. There's a 3-stack there, and the entire site is vacated, allowing the Monty to push forward. Bliss did a good job. They had the read on that, obviously, and they're like, okay, guys, let's just take the site, I suppose. I mean, and they're able to convert the round, and we are at 6-3. And you might be able to tell in my voice that there is a little bit of hesitation, because I don't want to get too excited just yet.
No, it's not over. It's not over.
No, it's not.
Till it's over. This is the most rounds they've been able to get in maps so far. This is technically, statistically, their best performance after technically, statistically, their worst performance on the previous map. So it is a great return to form here from Bliss. As I said, they were against the odds. Not only statistically on the map itself, but also how the game was going. And then you can see it on their faces. They're feeling it now, Mr. Krabs. The timeout from FaZe, as I predicted, if they did find themselves sitting here, well, there's no other time to take it. Sometimes teams will go, we can roll through, but with a couple of rounds now threaded in a row, and again, a little bit of a mistake in the understanding of where the players were, because you almost wonder if they had connected and killed Cyber, the site would have still been full of bodies. FaZe, a little bit of a snafu. Vamos. Oh,
Vamos indeed.
Vamos fresh as well, probably. It's become the word of the tournament. Vamos.
Ooh. Well, 3 match points for Bliss.
Wet was on a blitz.
And I'm going home if they lose this map.
Okay.
I'm done. I'm taking the next flight home, my next 30-hour flight home.
All right. Well, so would they be, probably.
Well, they do have they still have one more choice.
They're depending on DK's result later on today against SSG, I believe. If D+ lose, then it's all still to play for in a straight shootout if Bliss are to lose the series. It's not over. I ask you, Wet on a blitz. Is this, what's going on here?
Yeah, a bit of a pocket pick. I mean, we see it from time to time from Wet. I don't know exactly what the set play is likely going to be here, whether it's maybe like something like a gold drop and a back push with the blitz to head that charge. It could also be used to actually help clear the roam. There's currently only 2 players from FaZe actually on the basement floor, so it could be an effective tool in creating that space and then allowing the rest of the team to capture it.
It's all a little bit up to the wire right now here. Who is going to get this first read, this first take and play? Because the advantage generally has still ended up with 1 versus 1s from 3 versus 1s, but it has statistically always gone to the team that has that body advantage, apart from maybe once across this whole series. So this first bite is something that you can see FaZe is very aware of. They've pulled themselves further back. They're playing a lot more sort of, we need to have this as a 5 versus 5 on the site. We need to stop giving them a little bit of space and a little bit of a chance on the first fight. And Pull, look at this, handing their bodies back, rotating, getting themselves pieced together. They are full heads on a swivel, hoping to get the first taste of Australia.
Well, Bliss have been able to push their opponents back towards the objective. No damage traded at the halfway point of the round, which I think for Bliss is probably a tick in the attacking column. Both teams, though, probably relatively content with how it's played out thus far. We think about the late round, though, and it's Goyo and Smoke in play for the defense. So Bliss, I doubt, will be able to go for a default plant. If they are to, they probably need to start going about it right now. That won't be the case. Brendo has actually made his way in towards site with that shock drone. He's cleared the Goyo canisters on A. So as I make that point, perhaps there is still a world in which that is a win condition, but a lot of it will be on the shoulders of Souls to deny that area for Bliss.
They're eyeing up the default plant spot here, and I've talked about how good the utility game has been from the pockets of FaZe throughout the throw of this, and 30 seconds, 3 smoke canisters, 2 C4s. You fully expect them to have this in the bag. They're gonna have to try and push deep at this point. Tuck themselves on the wall as Brendo tucks the first player. There's the first canister. But with only 20 seconds left, they take the drop on the hatch. Bisho finds one. KDS trades them out on the swing, gets his second as well with the Vector. Sage is still watching the vertical at this point, concerned about the rotate as the player is about to come into the plant itself. Wet, gonna stick it and go for the cover, cannot. They have to try and push in at this point. There's the fight over the top. We only have a pocket full of second. Sage with a double inside the side. They're gonna see if they can stick it. Wet, he's going for the plant. The cover is there. They're pushing in. Wet, can he get it in time? He cannot. The shotgun is a difference of seconds there, and we are bitterly close, but not quite. FaZe get it to 6-4.
What a play from Souls, a nail-biting round right down to the wire. The final smoke canister just threw the attack into disarray. Wedables had to fall off, the coverage had to then be deeper. Shots not quite landing, which has been the story of this match so far, in the clutch for Bliss. They'll take a timeout in response. I think they can find confidence in the fact that the vast majority of that round was very, very positive. Just right at the very end, Souls proving that he was too good in the moment.
Breaking up the momentum of FaZe here as well. Obviously, when FaZe have taken a timeout, they've won a round. Only just. It came down to the difference of a couple of seconds. If the Blitz was able to get that plant down and get his shield up, suddenly you're in a 1-versus-1 against Blitz in the dying round of a post-plant situation. It's not easy, especially when you are charging into close quarters. The difference of that round could have been 2 seconds, could have been 1 smoke canister, could have been a lot of different things that siege. So instead of letting them sort of go, all right, we've got that momentum off the back of this, let's keep driving, break it up, Bliss. They were in decent bits and bouts of that entire round itself. The trade sort of coming back and forth. Again, this engagement, I mean, Souls, hell of a player and a take there, and how close was that kit to being secured as well? Not that it would have guaranteed a round, but in a 1-versus-1 where both of them are able to fight, it's a very different story.
I mean, if Brendo wins that one there to close out the map and the match, that would have been probably for me the best individual performance in any round of the match so far, because not only was he so proficient in covering the initial plant, but he got a lot of value from the Twitch, right? He was able to clear the Goyo canisters early and the mirror windows to weaken the plant denial potential for the defense. So unfortunate that he wasn't able to close it.
Oh.
And Wedables has busted his desk.
Gamer rage.
I don't think he slammed it.
No, he didn't. Luckily, I mean, maybe spilled something. That's always common. I don't know if we've had...
I thought it dropped down, but
they
it was
do
the
go
angle
up and
that
down. They I think, well, okay. I don't think all of them go up and down. I think there's like 3 per setup that have the ability to be... I might have misunderstood what they said. That might just be in the practice rooms. But I saw them going around with them, and apparently when they were first... When they arrive, by default, they're set really low. So one of the fun jobs the refs and the setup have to do is just sit there and raise every single... They're not quick. If you never used like a standing desk before, they're not fast. And imagine having to do that for every single practice room, for every single desk. I understand why they're not all standing desk. 64, 2 opportunities here for Bliss to lock this out. FaZe, they've been able to win, well, now 2 different sites, I believe. It was Open was the first, although it might have been Lockers actually. I can't remember if my notes were wrong there. the joys of it. But CEO was close. Plan A, I still wouldn't say was a success. So they haven't gone with the Oster again. Instead, the Monty.
Yeah, they've certainly switched it up. FaZe preemptively bringing the impacts on KDS, probably in an attempt to counter the Oster if it was brought forth, but instead a pivot to another shield operator, this time the Monty. And again, a pretty simple basic strategy. Push the Monty forward, zero with the information. But on the topic of info, a Valkyrie camera from Cyber will have full reign and full display of this particular setup from Bliss.
Well, they at least get the one on the top of Square itself. That gets pinged out, but you can see Cyber wants to activate. They're sat, just watching and waiting. They have souls sort of bouncing between this cam to say Monty's here, and then the cam on beepers to say no one's there. You're free to make a motion. Now they know Monty's up. Cyber has actually started to move. Souls, he was on cam a little bit longer at that point, but the Monty doesn't want to take that fight. The castle is going to make things a bit awkward. Cyber rotates out, goes for the first hit and smash against the barricade itself. He's sort of baiting the motion, and Souls almost takes it. Gets removed a bit of damage. The swing round, the Monty, he's spraying against Handy here, who has to swap to the secondary. Souls wants to offer some support. The pistol is doing its best. Oh, Handy gets the clip and everything lines up for him. Brendo gets a body, and it's very necessary on the back end. They are still one body short, though. Souls, he's close to the end. Handy, he's taken a fair bit of damage, and a timed rotate there as they no longer have the watch and the pressure. The drop, the rotate makes a bit of noise. They'll know someone's in that position, finds the first fight, but there's not much time to go, and unfortunately the execute comes against them. Brendo with the wide swing gets locked out, and FaZe find another 6-5, only one round between OT.
Yeah, FaZe showing there that they're able to react to the information, or lack thereof, knowing where players aren't, where they are, and react accordingly. I will say Odo is probably feeling really unlucky there on the Monty, spraying away, hip firing away, the RNG, the hip fire not going his way. Ultimately then ADS's snap headshot, 5v3, diffuser down, always going to be a FaZe round. Great work from Handy. Caught reloading. Shots don't land from the shieldy boy. And then Oda sent packing. Unfortunately, Brendo looking sharp, but that was always going to be a challenge to bring back. Round 11 the way of FaZe. Round 12 now looms, the final of regulation.
I don't want to accidentally put anything into the universe. You know that fear right now of saying something and a statistic? Hap would be like, blah, blah, blah. I'm Hap, I'm Dutch. Here's a statistic that makes things a little bit dicey. So I'm not gonna mention times that Bliss have been in this position and gone to OT and things gone wrong. I'm not gonna mention it. I'm not gonna mention the times that FaZe have been down rounds and been able to pull it back to win. I'm not gonna mention that either. That isn't gonna be mentioned by me.
Hypothetical.
However, there might be some stats. That belie those sort of confidences. In the calls, we find ourselves back towards a site where we will remember was kind of empty. They weren't hungry enough to sit inside the kitchen. Instead, decided to try and take the fight elsewhere. And Bliss saw opportunity, smashed it, grabbed it, took it, got a great round out of it. They almost have secured this map before, and here is a great opportunity for them to sit up and take it and send us into our third map here. Take their first, and their first points for it. Kanto gets cracked open, gives you the long sight line all the way down. FaZe, they're sometimes happy to swing against those angles, so you got to be cautious, but the guns of Bliss have been pretty pitch perfect throughout this game.
Well, records are meant to be broken, even those with a negative connotation, which Bliss have unfortunately been bestowed at this event so far. At the 2-minute point of the round, KDS under a little bit of pressure front desk, as it looks like Bliss will look to clear top down across. Again, Bliss have kept this bank very, very simple, very straightforward. And I think for FaZe, they've often had that read and the execution has fallen short. Information available. Oda falls first. He's having a really, really rough game. I don't think he's been able to deploy much in the way of information. Repel to come through. KDS to reposition. And FaZe really making it challenging here for Bliss to clear.
The blinds allow the player to get a bit closer, but he's unfortunately caught mid-step. I don't know if they knew that both players got themselves into that situation, so Sage is suddenly a lot of alone. Wet is on the far end of the rappel, but it's a long road to help him out. He does get KDS. But there is still a Janitor's player, and as I said, it's a very, very long rotate to Wet to offer some support, and Vidaking's got out of there because, well, it's a 4 versus 3. There's a minute. Give them vertical. We can always retake. There's a couple of staircases, and they've done no structural work on the middle floor at this point. There'll still be intel. There'll still be calls and concerns. They're still busy smashing up the boards and forcing, again, rooms that aren't the site itself. There is a lot of work to do around it when you're pushing onto this, and still, it's got to be done as they go to approach the wall itself. They wait for the break. Don't get lucky. FaZe, they are handing them nothing here.
Keeper's still standing, presumably F not mines as well from the Fenrir. So this will be a very tricky clear for Bliss. Weddable's almost spots Handy down below, but his position not exposed. Time dwindling. Bliss need to make a Hail Mary play to try and convert this map in regulation.
Setting breach charge.
The breach comes against the quad wall. They have them in a position, but Brendo gets caught out as soon as he opens up. A great take onto the Azami, and no! The swing and the TK at the worst possible time because you're just shooting at anybody. Bliss does not fill the fans with bliss. We go to OT.
Yeah, again, for Bliss, they're going for pretty simple attacks. That one there, the top floor clear across with the vertical play. And once they eventually got their feet in, it wasn't all too bad. Losing Oda first really hurt them there. Made it a challenge. And I think Oda really needs to step it up going forward because he has, unfortunately, been bestowed with, you know, the mantle of struggling on entry in the game so far. It was a very nice shot from Handy. Can't take that away from him. But with Bliss on attack for overtime, they are going to once again have to play perfectly. And the unfortunate story for them has been that in overtime so far at this event, they have not been able to capture a single round. It was a 6-8 loss to Wolves and then a 6-8 loss to SSG as well.
But
Attackers have discovered the location of a bomb.
in the positive, if they're able to take Locker's site, which, to be honest, they were very close to the last time we played it here, and they set themselves up in the 7-6 and get back on their defense, where they had a very good run across a couple of sites, getting 4 of them. You might be feeling pretty good about Bliss's chances because FaZe, their attacks were struggling at points. They weren't quite able to get control of Bliss's players.
Cover me.
The pressure is the highest it has ever been. There's no two ways about it against the second top seed, one of the best teams in the world, and a team everyone expects to be at the live stages, if not in the final. You have a chance to take a map, your first map of this tournament, the first map Australia has been able to take at SI since SI20, when we had Fnatic here. The catch on the intel, something that has proven very challenging for Bliss's holds, is just all of that sort of combination of the Valkyrie, the Maestro in this case. They start to lean in against it.
Yeah, and Brendo's been able to sneak into server as well. Keeping in mind that there are currently only 2 defenders on the basement floor. FaZe investing offsite. Valkyrie cameras in play, and Cyber looking to lock down that box square position. Sage has been spotted. There's a Maestro Evil Eye to his right. Oh, the swing. KDS gives away that pick.
It's under the bubble is underneath his feet. Sage is going to get down by a Maestro, probably can't see. Souls goes off of it, but he has no idea that that bubble is underneath. It gets pinged out, and Brendo gets Vidaking from the hatch down. They don't know that Brendo's in that position, but suddenly Cyber, he's sort of saying, hey, we're sitting pretty, or whatever that is in Portuguese, and at this point they're going, uh-oh, or whatever that is in Portuguese. 5-3 now, and it's still not over. They've been in this position and things have gone wrong before, but this is some of the best sort of conceded attack that we've seen, the concerned effort towards the players in the place. You just got to keep your eyes on the kit, the fight, either side. Do they know about Cyber? Because the Cyber NATO is about to swing around the corner. They have the pings on the player, but the drone has rolled through. The C4 does get the catch! Oda, again, still struggling in this fight, and the fight goes back against them. Handy is able to take care of Wet. The 3 versus 3 as Souls slinks his way back towards and gets Fisho through the soft. Disaster starts to strike. Brendo! Boyo, all that's left with 50 seconds. They can't quite get the confirmation. FaZe sit on map and series point.
5-3 for Bliss. And again, we're privy to info, but there was hardly anyone on the objective. There was one player deep inside of lockers. Bliss, all they had to do was consolidate, ensure they had square control, and default could have begun to be worked. Instead, Oda gets caught in lobby. That was not really a particularly good playmaking position. And then another outside of that push through to open area. So again, Bliss slipping up. Obviously, they got into the round with a couple of slip-ups from FaZe. Nice shot there from Brendo, who again lurked into that position, but so close yet so far. Once again for Bliss. And unfortunately for them, they now are staring down the barrel of serious point.
Twice they've attacked that site, and twice you would describe it as a situation where it was close, winnable for sure. And again, that pressure just strikes. As you said, we are sitting here able to see that there's no one on site. Getting that second kill that they got that round, I've saved Sage's life from that Maestro bubble because the Maestro popped off. There was about 3 zaps left in Sage's foot before he hit the ground, and they got what would have been one of the worst ways to go. Sort of like death by 1,000 drops. But in that situation, suddenly the Maestro is the only one on site. He's on the opposite side. The default is unwatched. There was a little bit of a rotate towards the site, the hatch above itself around open, but that's where Wet was putting on the pressure and was holding on to it. Again, just these tricky moments, these tricky reads that are going against them. KDS on the job that I said they sort of struggled with towards the middle. I mean, we've seen a player die to a Capcan trap. They're going to try their best to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, Capcan in play. So important that that information is relayed effectively by FaZe. Cyber again going for a swift entry. He's been so deadly, especially on this buck roll here on Bank, and in particular on this objective, often sweeping in through open area. At the moment, just making his way down bot square. His eyes now on Brendo. Probably the first target on his hit list. Brendo needs to be really careful, because I don't think Bliss have any sort of a read that Cyber's being able to sneak into this position.
They are either side of a very narrow fight here, and the Sam Cams are getting some idea of the rotations onto lobby, and as you said, Cyber's unchecked right now. Brendo does not know they're on the other side of a soft wall, but both these players are more than capable of it. You sort of have this wish to shake them and say, look, you know how close you are to each other. Raptors in Jurassic Park. Stay still, unfortunately not still enough. There goes Brendo, the first off the board. A player who has had many moments swinging into the favor of Bliss right now is unfortunately the first to find himself on the opposite end, sitting watching cams. Vidiking rolling through and getting the read on the next player for Cyber to tear his way through. Sage does find Vidiking. At least makes it not an entirely clean take, but Wet, he's under a bout of pressure here. He has the shield. The drone is going to give some of the game away. He's waiting for the swing to come round either side and just takes the drop and thinks, nah, not going to sit around and see what happens next in this story because Green is under pressure. There's the Barb to stop some of the motion. But again, the top 2 floors have been cleared at this point.
Yeah, the drone work from FaZe in this round, impeccable. Hunting down these players off site. Brendo, the first to fall immediately after, oh, pardon me, Oda then immediately falling after, again off the back of really good information gathering from FaZe. Drone's now in sight. They know what the utility is in place. They now have 30 seconds to formulate this push.
Everything has been prepped here for FaZe, and they have been very good at this specifically. Getting the kit down at the dying throws and knowing where they need to watch things. A C4 from Fisho does get the down onto Handy, and Wet gets KDS. Suddenly it's a 3 versus 2, and the 10 seconds are left. They're getting the player up, and Souls drops and tries to rock one, but Fisho has the trade out. It's a 1 versus 2 technically, as the other one's got a plant. The vertical gets the kit. We're going all the way.
And Vingarang rallying the troops. Really well done at the death there from Bliss. It wasn't the best of starts. FaZe dismantling the roam. However, once again, they fall to a retake up above. It happened very early on in this game. If we cast our minds back, FaZe allowing the retake, I believe, once more up the main stairs. Hatch presence there, able to deny the plant for a second time. And with no time or manpower left on the clock for FaZe, they do fall. And the scoreline, 7-7.
5 seconds left.
I mean, the sort of perfect cover. Wet, they've been playing a hell of a game. throughout this so far. Sage as well in those situations, and this is those moments where you sort of say, oh, Bliss's games before, there's been a player that's popped off and sort of set the pace here. At this point, you're up against Cyber, who's been having a hell of a game. But to be honest, you look across the boards here and it's sort of evenly matched. The one or two missing moments are being picked up. Either side, 7 apiece, as far as it could possibly go. They're breaking records right now. They've taken an overtime round.
I was going to say they've doubled their overtime win count, but you can't multiply it by 0. So.
I'm sure there is at least 3 people that are actually-ing right now.
Well, they could double it now because they have finally captured 1.
Yeah.
But it will have to be on the attack, and we go top 4 for round number 15. What will the push be here from Bliss? They brought the Monty once again, so they're not going to revert back to the Oster strat that we saw previously.
Yep.
It would probably be Monty up Banana, but once again, Cyber playing the Valkyrie, and if he's using the same camera and it isn't spotted out by Bliss, it could make it a challenge for the Aussies.
I mean, there's this almost frustrating thing here about the Aussies not bringing IQ, right? And obviously, Cyber has played...
It's the same one.
Yeah, and they've played Valk every single round, and they've played it very well. They're 15-10. They have been decimated multiple times by players coming up round the back, not knowing about these surprise strikes, and instead of going, oh, we have an operator who can just get the read. It's such a big room lobby. That's why the SAM cams, that's why the Valk cams are so powerful here, because there's a bajillion different places to tuck those little cameras and make things tricky and sticky to see. KDS takes the first scrape of damage here. Hey Monty, you're on cam, caught in 4K, yada yada, said before. I feel like I shouldn't have to keep saying again.
I mean, if Bliss split the attack properly, this could actually work out in their favor if it draws FaZe over towards lobby and then they can hit, you know, top square and stock. There is, though, utility standing, and I don't know if Bliss have a particularly good read on that half of the map, so I don't know if that will be an option. It does look like there is a bit of presence outside top square, and obviously the repel game from Bliss at the moment. I don't think that castle got cleared. No, it didn't.
Might have just rolled underneath, I think.
So I'm looking at Brendo here. I'm looking at Brendo to probably be the one to really help unlock the round. If he can sneak a pick or 2, whilst everyone on FaZe is, you know, honing in on the Monty, it could slip up here for FaZe. Handy the first 2-4 actually from that front desk position, and the Monty advances forward.
Now Cyber needs to try and make some work happen underneath, but look how deep Fisho's gone. He's all the way towards the side of CEO. He's fancying a new title and job, and that might be to try and get the kit down. The coverage of the plant could come together, but they want to keep pushing for the kills. There's the smoke. And Cyber, the big rotate round the back as Oda. He's able to strike into action when he's needed the most. KDS still taking these scrapes, but it's Brendo to get the end of Vitter King, and Handy goes down. They're going for the plant. Cyber, he's had an exceptional series so far, and this is his moment to shine for FaZe as he's trying to rebuild and restructure with KDS who's just sitting, waiting inside the smoke. The cover and the swing comes out, but there's Cyber over the top. They're going to see if they can stick it as the final blow comes together. 3 versus 1. Many of these have gone away from them. A post-plant Monty. This is one of those situations you say is impossible, but Cyber's one of those players who can make that happen. He cannot this time round. Bliss, baby! You take your first map at this SI. You take your first map at SI Australia in about 3 years. Can you take your first series is now a question being honestly posed.
Oh, they did it. They actually did it. I cannot believe it. Yes, finally, Bliss. They convert a map, and I could almost hear the sigh of relief from the boys downstairs all the way up here in the studio. What a way to close it out. I mean, what a play. I mean, the fact that Fish pushes all the way to the other side to try and get the plant down. They got stalled out for like a good 30 seconds, and I'm like, guys, please, 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 not like this, not like this. But they got the job done against the number 2 seed, one of the favorites to make it to the final of the event. So a monumental result for Bliss, and I cannot wait for this third map.
It's also the last time an Australian team has beaten a Brazilian team. Was against FaZe at that SI I talked about before, but the series is still yet to play for, and FaZe can very much still take this on Labs after a very quick break.
That is the first map win we have had from an OS team in 6 Invitational for 4 years. Not since 2020, where Fnatic had that miraculous run, have we seen even a map from an OS team. And now they have gone and done it against the 2nd seed FaZe. They told me not to swear on broadcast, but I'm gonna do it. Yeah, the frickin' boys. I'm not gonna do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. I was close, but no cigar.
There is a whole region here that is breathing a sigh of relief, right? These guys have done it. They've picked up a map. It's been looking like it's so close to happening throughout this group so far. Finally, they get one on the board.
God, that made it hard, brother.
It was very hard, especially that first map. Yesterday, the days before, they were getting so close to finally close that out. I mean, you got to feel so relieved if you're a Bliss fan. If you're Bliss, you know, it gives you a little bit of a confidence going into the next matches. You know, we can do it. We can finally, like, get some points.
Well, let's actually break down Bank and have a look a little bit deeper into it. First half, good first half from Bliss.
Where was that half on Bank from Bliss? During Clubhouse.
Yeah.
Because they played fantastically well.
Jeez. Look at the gut-wrenching second half from FaZe there. I know, we're not even talking about the second half yet, but like that was, oh God, that was devastating. My God.
So they pick up a 4-2 split, which is fantastic because they started off on the attack. Started off on the defense, sorry. And that was the side that they struggled in on Clubhouse. Fantastic job on the defense. It didn't always translate, and FaZe were able to seriously start to chain some rounds together there. But it was a top-to-bottom team performance. We saw great results out of players like Wettables. He had some really big moments in the game. Rendo doing his job as well.
Down the wire, 7-7, Fox. I mean, it really can't get any closer than that.
It can't. The way that FaZe was able to respond to Bliss is they were really trying to force them to the plant. They knew that Bliss had very early aggression, so FaZe would send somebody out to try and contest them a little bit and then fall back down to the site. On the basement, that you saw a lot of Goyo, a lot of smoke. On the top floor, we saw a lot of information, Cyber playing downstairs. Bliss, what they did differently in this game compared to the Wolves game was they realized that, they recognized that, and they took charge of the time that was given. They weren't letting FaZe get in their way and slow them down on the way to get to site. They understood, we've been here before against Wolves. We know if we let the time tick down, we're not gonna have enough utility to get that plant down in those final seconds.
I mean, just like watching back through these rounds, it really does go to show how close some of them were. You know, a lot of late round executes, a lot of things going right, a lot of things going wrong as well, which is something that, you know, we try not to highlight as much, but sometimes you can't help it.
We've got to do it, right? We've got to talk about things that go wrong because it's important to note, and there were some things that FaZe didn't do very well. You know, there were a couple of those rounds that they really could have looked to try and close out, and equally there were some things that Bliss could have done to make it a lot easier for themselves, given they were 6-2 up.
Maybe not
at one
TKing
point.
someone. That might help.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not de-shielding as Monty, maybe, you know, having a little bit more of a, I mean, you were talking about that, it was like looking in the mirror for you folks, wasn't it?
No, I mean, when you have the Monty going up CEO stairs, we were like, oh, this is like a great information gathering piece, but the Spider-Man rappel didn't work out. And when you have your Monty unshielding as a final say, most of the time it doesn't really work out for you. And then that last round, Monty was able to just push all the way through into CEO. I was getting stressed that FaZe completely gave him the complete site, and there was nowhere for him to plant. All of the FaZe members were waiting for that execute, but the rest of Bliss were just posted up around baiting that, and they got the picks.
Well, you know what? We can move forward now. We can look to the last map of this series. I can't believe we're saying that we got to a third map. Bliss have finally done it. They've finally pushed us past Bank. Now we go to Labs. What's interesting as well, just as like a little side conversation, both teams have taken each other's map pick. You know, make of that what you will. But Fox, going into Labs, how do you feel about this one?
Labs is a very untested map so far. I know a lot of the Brazilian teams enjoy playing it, but I haven't seen too much of the APAC teams, especially OCE teams. I mean, we don't see too much out of them usually up until this game right here. Sorry, I didn't mean to do this to you, but
You just like...
I didn't mean to do that to you.
Come
but
on, man.
There's a lot of untested and unproven ground, so we'll have to see how the meta shapes up within regions, especially on this map. I think they have a lot of unpredictability on all of their other maps with how fast they've been getting in the map and how fast they've been moving on defenses to respond to FaZe's entry, especially Cyber.
Yep.
So I'm expecting the same thing on Night Haven.
All right. Very, very quickly. Prediction.
I'm gonna say it's gonna be another close game. I wouldn't be surprised if Bliss do quite well. Their attacks today have been fantastic. I think we can forget the 23% number that we threw out at the start of the day. We're gonna need a new number by the end of the day for Bliss.
FaZe or Bliss?
I love how you set that all up just to be like, yeah, FaZe is probably going to win still. I'm going with FaZe. I'm going with FaZe.
Well, you know what? I got to do it. I got to do it for the boys. Bliss are taking a map. That's right. They're going to go. They're going to go ahead and take the series. They're taking all 3 points from this one. But it is time to get underway with Labs, Emmy, and Guz. Are you ready?
I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if you're ready. Manic is living up to his name because, let's be honest, they've done one map. A series? Is that too impossible an ask?
Well, I'm just happy I've had an opportunity to dry my hands. They were so sweaty during bank as Bliss.
Look at that ratio that's changed, though. That was like 10% at the start of today.
Yeah, I mean, Bliss trying to fight off that 5-3 curse on the previous map, but they did it. They finally put it to bed, which is lovely to see. Labs, though, is a bit of an unknown quantity. I think Bliss actually are pretty decent on this map. Will it be up to the same standard as FaZe? Not too sure. FaZe, of course, were pretty happy to let it through against the Plus, but
yeah,
the series didn't get that far. As for Bliss, they have not had it in their aforementioned series just yet. So it's a bit of an unknown quantity, and I'm keen to jump into it.
It's one of those awkward questions now, because the 2 maps that we've seen has obviously been 2 teams taking their opponent's maps that we had seen them on before. We had, you know, a little bit of club from FaZe, a little bit of bank from Bliss, and now they've been able to find success here. We're up to what is fresh ground, fresh territory, fresh turf, which is the freshest turf in the map pool as well. If you're looking at how this map can handle strategically, it's a little bit awkward. Bliss banning out Maverick. I mean, they used the operator very well, but think about the basement, think about those hard walls, think about the play that might slow FaZe down. Slow FaZe down could be a good game because, well, FaZe have done all their executes pretty much sub 30 seconds. And this, with an unknown quantity, with an awkward space, could turn into a little bit of a dicey situation for them.
Could well be the case. Defensively, Bliss not taking any chances. It's Solace again, so maintaining that 100% ban rate at the event. Azami to follow up, and I feel like I'm always talking about Azami on this map, especially top floor defensively. The other objectives is relevant as well. The Azami provides so much value to the defense because it makes so many positions that are otherwise unplayable far more tenable. And if you're an attacking team, Labs is all about breaking those crossfires, and the more that are established off the back of the Azami, the more difficult it gets. So I like that from Bliss. It should aid them significantly on the attacking half. And they, you know, are hot off the back of a really good attack to close out bank. So we'll see how they go here on Labs.
Well, Australia have an even bigger celebration. I had a quick look at Twitter just to see what was going on. And I mean, those national anthems I saw being played.
All 5 people that are still
all
awake.
All 5 people
off.
still awake. Most of them together. James, Sky, saw you there.
Yeah, another was there. The boys chilling out.
The boys chilling out. We see you. We're watching you. I'm actually glad you've gone somewhere public for this because I don't think your neighbors at 2 a.m. 2 a.m. now?
I think it's closer to 3 now.
3 a.m. Yeah. Well, let's see how long this series goes. As Ollie sort of said, I think this could turn into a bit of a brawl that goes the distance. Carly in the pockets of Oda. Obviously, you know, it's never fair to sort of look towards a single name as someone you want to see step up.
It's fine. Oda can take it. He played shit.
It's also because the other 9 players in this lobby played pretty decently in the previous map. He was the unfortunate outlier. Against that, Bliss still won. So if he finds some of that pace that he had in the first map, it could be something that works into their favor. With these claws up, and with the ban onto Maverick, it limits some of this, but that is a claw that is not close enough to the wall to get the impact. It's either at the top or underneath, and the drone is going to have to do some recon.
Yeah, I think Bliss ran into that problem expecting the solution to be pretty straightforward. I think there's now a re-attempt, and that will be the case. So wall opened up, double hard bridge either side. Selma exothermic wall now confirmed. That will open up the passage in towards the connector. And I'm presuming that the next objective for Bliss will be the main IT breach. That rotation coming through now as KDS having to watch this position and ensuring that no one from Bliss is able to sneak forward.
Yeah, you sort of expect this wall to fall at this point. It's not the only point of pressure, and then you move on to here, towards the computer side, towards the back end of Garage, maybe if you want to try and force the fights into the big open rafters and give yourself a bit of a route through. Stage is the cutoff at the middle point. The first burn as they just slip on by. There is that removed the Fenrir mine just at the top as they swing towards the connector, past electrical all the way up. There's a frost mat, and we've seen 2 of those strike beforehand. He's handily sat with a shotgun ready for the swing. But nobody is immediately leaning in. It's turning into a little bit of a dead bit of territory. That line on connector, that line on towards what Handy decides is the only door that's going to stop them in as the rest of FaZe start to rotate to offer some backline support.
Cyber in a peculiar position at the moment. Bot Garage, he does have a Nitro to go for denial from below if that's the goal, but perhaps just trying to ward off the threat of the lurk. Sage, meanwhile, he's the one up above and he's pushing forward, but slain. So a 2 versus 4, and FaZe doing a good job in pushing these attackers back. Can Werdables get his team back into the round? Well, it's a resounding no. Oda with the sniper.
Oh!
Able to find one, but this will be a challenge.
Yeah, it goes in with the secondary, but the second is unfortunately ready to swing back onto them. FaZe, they're able to hold out. They sort of, as I said, the first wall fell. They expected it. They had the Wall Midas to catch it, and then they also had the Warden with his glasses to stop any of the flashes push. They just did not have anything to force those players out. The ways you can sort of deal with that problem, if you go underneath, it's a big rotate, but it is soft immediately underneath that door. Used to be done with grenades. Obviously, that is no longer possible. And then also the pressure that you could apply onto the opposite end, which they did attempt. We saw one at the top of Aquarium Stairs. We saw one towards the garage swing as well, but both those players, unfortunately, weren't able to cause enough devastation. Down to the basement we go.
Yeah, I think Bliss just probably lacking enough complexity in that push to, you know, flush out those positions, as you mentioned, and going linear there, again, can work without this army on the board, but you need to have tools to flush out those key power positions, and I think obviously the Warden plays a huge role in that. And if you're not flushing it out from down below, you're taking an unfavorable fight head on into the shotgun. Makes it very, very challenging to then unlock the rest of the site. And despite the best efforts over towards the likes of Rafters and obviously Oda lurking on the back push, they didn't get as much value as they would have wanted. Down to the bottom floor though, and once again Vert will be the name of the game. And also from the defense, at least initially, with FaZe electing to hold offside.
Yeah, there are awkward walls to approach, but there are multiple ways to do it, and one of those is bring the Thatcher, get it sort of locked down, and whether the ban on the Maverick was to force the Thatcher play in towards their opponents here, the Tubarão is going to cause those opposite problems. There is a little window after activation, and it's about half a second to a second. However, it depends how quickly the Tubarão is at reacting towards it. They roll that, assuming the count will go soon enough. The second onto this window, takes a little bit of the damage and goes for the pop itself, but with the ice not quite working off on the other, it does just get through, and both walls do get blown open. Good balance against the new operator.
Yeah, pretty easy to deal with that Tubarão at the moment, and Bliss putting that on full display. Next challenge will be helping clear this roam, and it's Brendo on the Jackal to try and gain a little bit of information, a scan to come through. Souls is the key player up above, pre-established Vert in towards the breach so he can ensure that nobody, especially with the diffuser in hand, can sneak through and go for a plant. Looking to draw in the attack. But Bliss not quite biting. Brendo instead will play a little bit more reserved, perhaps a little bit less direct, now going top floor. Unfortunately, Oda will be the first to fall again.
I mean, Cyber, as I said, on a Valk, in their element, they just love that operator and they love being able to do this. Cause problems, sit by themselves on the opposite end and come in for the flank on the far side. They know how to play this game, and they know how to play this game. They drop, they rotate, they get themselves a little bit more tucked in and closer towards the site itself. Remember where we're going and where we've started here. There's a minute 10 and they'll get the feet on the fleeing player inside kitchen, but he's almost sort of saying, all right, come on, if you think you're hard enough, I've got an MPX and my name is Cyber. Wet is more than happy to step up to the challenge, however, it's more time wasted. Soul still has the position down onto the breach as well, so they can't quite get the clean entrance that they want. That DMR is terrifying in the right hands, and here's a very much those. The drone rolls a little bit forward, a trade out. Souls and Stage find one apiece with Fish trying to get the entrance, and Wedables on the swing as well. Holds on for a second, because, again, they need to keep this momentum moving on the press.
We'll see if Brendo can pluck a kill. It is Vidaking, the off angle. As we head back up above with Souls, he is being contested on this position. I believe it's Wedables. 25 seconds now, and Brendo pushes forward. Has Vidaking heard it? Brendo knows there's one close, but he second guesses himself at the final moment. The plant's going down, but Fisho to fall off.
He fell off. He just got a bit of pressure that came towards him. Clips the wing of Handy here, but he needs a bit of support here from Wet. The other two players were stacked up. Stoles gets Wet. There's the first swing, but no. Boots inside the ground of the site, but they just could not get that final landing in FaZe. They hold on. They played it very smart, though. Just tucked themselves in the corners, played the time, played how awkward the map could be, because this is what we said about it. It's going to be an awkward one to attack based on lack of knowledge of their opponents on this map, but also maybe just lack of this map's knowledge in general.
Yeah, there were a couple of moments of hesitation there from Bliss, where I think if they just had the confidence and backed themselves in and trusted either, you know, any information that they may have had or just their general game sense, then it would have been perhaps a different outcome. A little bit perplexed as well by the decision from Bliss to fall off directly pushing Souls and overloading that position. I think it just added that extra layer of complexity, taking it to the other end of the spectrum compared to round one, where it was very difficult to connect the dots in time. And to the credit of Souls, he did a good job from his spot in denying pressure on the breach, and then those on site were, given playmaking positions required to win out the round, as we do enter, unfortunately, a technical timeout.
Yeah, a bit of a tech pause. Again, for those new, the players cannot speak to each other. The coach cannot speak to the players. It's just showing them how to wear a headset. It's lessons learned. I mean,
one on the left here and one on the right.
yeah. Make sure it's the right way around. No. You assume they know this. We'll hopefully be back in the game soon. A bit of break momentum. Do you want to know a fun fact now that since that they've won a round, or a map even, there are only 3 teams left in this tournament that have not got a single map or a single point. Can you guess who they are?
D+, FearX, and no, not Falcons, because they've got one against Fury. Tough question. Is it someone that I would, once you tell me, and I'm going to be like,
once you tell you, I'm like, yeah. I'm sure everyone is spamming it in chat right now.
I don't know.
M80. They are yet to get a point.
Yikes.
Those are the 3 remaining teams. Obviously, we'll be playing some of that today. I think M80's last game is maybe today. I know they've got 2 more in hand. They've got 2 more games in hand.
Yeah, I think Sprabuni on Twitter has been doing the percentage chance of where teams are going to end up in the group. And
yeah.
I believe, if I remember correctly, M80 was actually the most likely of any team in any group to finish 5th, which is a pretty damning statistic. I believe it was like 60% or more. It's a significant number.
Yeah, it's the weird thing about the M80 group. Obviously, it's sort of been a little bit different to how we were. They've played the 2 teams at the top of the group, VP and W7M, and they still have Bleed to go and they have Liquid to go. Those are the 2 teams that, I'm not going to say they've been struggling, but they've had hot moments and less hot moments, and that's why they sort of end up. So it's still all to play for. It's just a fun fact, guys.
Well, not for M80.
Not for M80. No,
not for NA.
Not for NA. EU, the 3 teams that are here, they currently top each of their respective groups. Somehow, I don't even think EU people expected that. I think get through, sure, but this, no. That's all of our teams. We had 3 teams reach the live stages last time, and this time we've only sent 3. So I think we just forgot. We're just like, dang, we maybe should have sent some more dudes in.
Perhaps. Well, we're back into the game, round number 3, ready to go. Storage for this particular round, and an objective that can be a little bit strange sometimes in the way it plays out. There's a lot of different avenues, especially I think defensively, that we've seen throughout the tournament, whether it be like these extensions down below with like a Pulse or a Solus if available. Top floor as well gets some attention, and that's a lot of that comes down again to the vertical presence that you can get either from above or from down below. So we'll see how Bliss look to unlock it.
It's that awkward sort of toss-up between this and Kitchen, as the side of Kitchen is almost a smaller version of this. There's a bit of verticality you can get. There's the instant hop into one of the sites you can get. There's the Trezor and Danger, but here you just have a little bit more wiggle, a little bit more width laterally against the site itself, so they're not quite able to entirely buffer you away.
It's a little less direct. I think of Kitchen almost in a similar light to like a dining Oregon almost, because like on Oregon, right, small tower, you can get it for free, you can't get flanked. Yeah. Here, lobby, it's much harder to get flanked. I know there's a staircase, but it's very, very difficult.
Double break, if you're wondering, hey, why'd they do that? Well, mainly so it doesn't get tricked. Stop. They've already suffered on the wrong end of a trigger hour before, and it just means that you are guaranteed to get the breach open. 2 walls, they can only trick one of them at a time. Kaid is too slow with the claw, so you're guaranteed to get it open with the dedicated utility. Here, they rotate round. They're making sure the jobs get done, so the job can be done. Fish, he's going to go down towards the little box entrance here onto warehouse. Just get all of these doors smashed open as the warehouse itself gets broken. Gives them sight lines in that now they can exploit. Cyber is going to see if he can try and loop a C4 up through the top. He's ready for it, but he's a little bit too eager. They're well lined up towards that door.
Yeah, had Fish have not walked into a beer mine and then fallen back, it could have actually been quite a different story. Would he have tanked it? Well, we'll never quite know. BPC watching Fish on this push up the staircase. Frost in play, so something to keep in mind, especially later on into the round when chaos ensues and sometimes attacking teams can forget that those traps are laid around. Fish being used here to create space on rafters. FaZe not looking to directly contest though, pretty content to play into their setup. But only 70 seconds to go, time may become an issue for Bliss, but they get pick 1.
Yeah, Cyber has been removed. He obviously plays that loose role for this team anyway, so if there's one to lose, it's him. There's the swing. Souls gets Brendo, and then there's Wettables to get 2 on the back of it, with KDS finding Oda in and amongst the mix. The 3-2 at this point with 50 seconds, but the first strikes towards the verticality has come together. KDS creeps their way underneath the entrance that was made onto the computer side with Handy far away on the opposite end. Now they're getting themselves some clarity. There's 2 ways to utilize those, but one of them is intel. You can know as soon as people are entering from far and far across the map, so you'll know if there is aqua pressure that you might need to be prepared and aware of. They might go for the rotate there underneath, pop up a couple of different staircases. Probably not going to play the hatch itself because, well, there's not a lot to do as Fisho is going to see if he can stick the kit nicely tucked on the opposite end. No stopping this from the swing. There it is, and see KDS look for it. Does find the player, but the trade comes out. And a first round goes to Bliss's favor.
Some fighting words there from Fisho. Of course, the I believe primary IGL of the team at the moment. Wettables is doing a bit of co-IGLing and also fragging out as well. And he's a player that, in the right position at the right time, has a knack for finding multi kills. Does it in Oath. He did it against the Wolves as well, from memory on Shelly in particular. Doing a good job here. Fight his way through rafters. Vidaking was in a very aggressive position there, punished well. And his final sharp shot from Wet. Well, I say final, that was the second final. That last pick, a good trade. And good signs from Bliss, finally able to produce a response.
1 round, obviously it's always the start of it. As we said, it's going to be slower for attackers. They've had good attacks throughout this series so far. It's been where statistically they've been able to break against not only their mold, but the mold of the whole tournament. Let's be honest, when you start to see teams lead with attacks, as both these two have done, these are one of the ones that start to normalize and bring towards the middle the ideas of how this game is currently played towards that top end level. I sort of said it at the start. I wanted to see Oda step up a little bit more, as they have so far, but unfortunately, Brendo, Sage, and Fisho, who were 3 of the superstars of the previous map, haven't quite been able to match it. Wet, though, still tearing on through on the opposite end. Cyber, I still fully predict to fully start to stretch his legs. He has just been getting better and better throughout this series. And yeah, he's on the Bandit, he's playing against it, and Souls might be the one wearing the fancy crown so far, as he's holding on to great backline positions, which is the role that Souls does, especially with this 9mm. But I think that as soon as they get a little bit more confidence on what approach Bliss are making, FaZe will come up with their very clever rebuttals they usually do.
Well, looking quite similar to the previous attack from Bliss, exchanging though the Kali for a Thatcher this time around, and the trick obviously doesn't land. It was a double down from the attack. Salma on the right, Exothermic on the left, and despite Cyber being fully aware, there's only so much he could do from that position.
Yeah.
So Con will open up. Bliss will transition, I presume, next over to IT. So identical groundwork from Bliss. Last time, their execution wasn't all that amazing. Key part of the defense was FaZe playing a Warden, especially up close. So will Bliss have the tools to be able to deal with that? Cyber aggressing again, double hard breach once more from Bliss, but Cyber's now tucked in the corner. This is not a position you want to be in, but able to escape unpunished.
Bliss not being able to catch him there. We'll see if that's a problem that bites them later on, because he truly was standing 1 foot on a little bit of board that was left to him, and somehow hop, skipped, and jumped his way out of there. Brendo, he's stacked up. They'll have the air jabs to offer some protection, but the rotations behind them weren't the problem last time. It was this sort of dead man's land between the two areas of being in the site and not quite there yet. The close swing of a Warden with a shotgun was one huge problem. The next was just getting their foot in on the back end of the breach that they made themselves. KDS shows why, finds the first. Fisho is gone. As Vidaking starts to juggle, those can only be popped when they're open, and that's open now. The blinds come out against the player. They got to try and get that kit back, but it's risky to go for the swing. There's one more kill into their favor. It's Cyber finds Sage on the split round. Brendo going for blinds. It's Cyber. As I said, it might be a problem that comes back to haunt them, and as I said, he might start to pop off more and more as he gets confident with what Bliss like to do in front of him. Wet does get one. Brendo cannot get the connection on the connector swing onto electrical, but instead Cyber does 3. Doesn't quite get the 4th there, but almost gets the full bite of Wet, who's just popping bullets either side. It's Vidaking to lock it out, but FaZe 2 for 2, and a sturdier hold on that top floor.
Yeah, it's a positive sign for FaZe that despite the Azami, they're still being able to find playmaking positions in towards the objective, and Bliss finding it tricky to break down. It's quite unfortunate for the attack that they weren't able to get that freebie at the start with Cyber on an island. He obviously tried to go for the bandit juggle, didn't land it successfully, and then had to try and scurry away from IT. If Bliss had somebody posted out on the breach, they would have had the advantage and then probably could have leaned into it in combination with the utility to trade out some positions. But unfortunately, they didn't have that. They call it tactical timeout though, so sensing that these attacking rounds are going to come at a premium, and they really want to get at least one more under the wing.
They want to try and get the distance. As you said, on their attack, they know that FaZe are a very capable attacking team. They're very, very capable on their sort of gun game and the pressures that they can put in as well. And the confidence that Bliss had on bank of making those sort of motions and putting themselves in these tricky positions, it worked wonders. Again, it's a learning game. It's a learning game when you're up against a team on a new anything, map, operator, whatever. We'll have back down to the basement, tank and assembly. They're keeping their rotation as it was before, and this was outside of the round that they won. Of the rounds that they lost, the closest they got. So I'm curious to see if we get what we just got, which was FaZe stepping up their hold, or if Bliss can try and make something happen.
FaZe dropping the 2 morale this time around Castle in play, so that's probably going to be in an attempt to further fortify the roam, which was already a challenge for Bliss to break down in order to contest vertical line of sight in towards the breach and the objective itself. So I do wonder how Bliss are going to deal with that. Again, that's assuming it's for the roam. I can see Soul's top floor at the moment, so probably will be the case. The 0 will be brought out from Bliss, and that's one operator that Fish can be particularly proficient of, and especially given his role inside of the team to, call shots and plays. Perfect operator for him to be in that sentry position.
As the approach comes together, Ram in the pockets of Sage. The first time we've seen this operator today in the showdown as well. They've been able to find some pretty nice places to play against it. Most notably, you're looking at, your clubhouse takes on towards the basement. And here, well, you're taking a basement that's got some similarities towards club. You have a lot of soft floor and a lot of breaking and shaking and moving the players away from the breach itself, which was a bit of a problematic area. They got a bit of a drive in, but they still could not stop the utility being hucked and thrown towards them. The player, the Sam Cams, to maybe get some control of, well, this man, Cyber, who's very happy again to just keep sort of dancing around, taking and trading out drones. There's a fight about to happen on Aqua that he just seems prepared for at all points, but Fisho doesn't.
Oh, well, he gets a little bit lucky there. I don't think Fisho had a read on that at all. Cyber now to drop down into gains. Will he fall into a pinch, though? Bliss are approaching from kitchen and lobby. Brendo in lobby and Oda outside the kitchen window. There's the Ram in play. Top down. I don't mind this from Bliss. But again, they have to be conscious of time and ensure that that doesn't creep up on them all too much in the round, as Brendo will scout forward. And we'll see if he can have an impact in clearing out this game's extension. Can he force FaZe back towards the objective? And well, the answer to that is a yes. So all 5 members of FaZe now back on the bottom floor.
Doesn't mean the job is close to done, unfortunately, though. They've still got to try and get the hatches cracked open, do some of the more structural work around the soft boards and force the players into even trickier situations to hold. There's the run and the roam. This, as you'll see, is right above that double wall that gets a big focus to the breach. The default plant spot tucked in and on the left. FaZe does find KDS. The first time they've really got a comfortable entry without it being an instant battle. Back and forth, but with 44 seconds, the pressure time is still onto them after all that was wasted on the top floor. They're watching some of the motions happening on the corner of the drone. They just see the side of a player, but I don't know if... There it is. They thankfully pop back on 3 FaZe players. They've just got angled up towards that fight as Fisho and Cyber trade bullets. It's actually Handy that goes down next, but 20 seconds, Cyber doing his best to keep the lockdown with Vidaking popping smokes either side and all around. It's Souls to get the first though. Oda goes, the Nook off the board. They're trying to find just a pocket of a place to plant here. It's always been the thing about Bliss. They're never truly confident. 2 kills go away from them. They're just going to hold and stick until they can no longer hold. Swings the first fight, but it's locked out. It just leaves Sage on the distance. He gets 1. The other player's holding pretty. And unfortunately, just not enough time. Too much wasted on the top floor, 4-1.
Yeah, just a disconnect there from Bliss through the late round. We saw the drone from Brendo, the 3-stack over towards Exo. They trade out Handy, pretty decent job there. Fisho tries to get in for the plant, but Sage is all the way on the opposite side. He can't play coverage. Fisho forced off, doesn't win the fight. Even if he did, FaZe probably still do trade it out. So it's once again some faults in the late round from Bliss. Up until that sort of last 30 seconds, it was actually, quite strong from them. They cleared the roam, they forced FaZe back. They were able to deploy the auto breaches on the ramp, get line of sight, rewarded with a kill. But then Vidaking, absolute beast, pops off. We didn't see that live, but those were some really gnarly shots to turn it around.
That's a little bit of frustration there, actually seeing it that way around, because they were getting the kit down on the corner. They had the breach to watch it. If they'd have sat on that angle a little bit more passively, whoever it was who died outside double breach, they could have protected the diffuser partner from going down. They could have given them some safety. Watch the door. If they go for the hop over the wall, then you might need to come off the plant to go for the 2 versus 1, but you've still got the angle. Instead, leaning into the fight makes it a coin flip. You give them the 1 versus 1. And again, very easy for me to sort of say that from this position. It shows the sort of level of stress and intensity here that is on in this situation of just 2 feet to the left. You have a safer angle to take that engagement. They have to try and lean into you rather than you lean into them. Fisho doing a little bit of crime here, stealing 1 camera, steals 2. And now they have, well, eyes in that otherwise the Monty had to steal last time.
And that will give some good vision to Bliss and or force FaZe to rotate and clear those cameras, provided they know they've actually been hacked. Double hard breach once more, but the 2 Varel in response.
Claw ready to go back on. Now the claw takes a while to activate, so even if it does go on, oh no, it'll activate because it's not frozen. The wall will go. I think the Selma might still pop off actually, depending on the time. No, just a little bit too short.
Yeah, well played there from FaZe, juggling that util really well. Obviously important that both defenders are in sync and communicating that properly. Sage will follow up with a second exothermic as Cyber burns his C4 early. Brendo, though, doesn't take a single hit point of damage. He has lost both his drones, though. 4 in total have been lost by Bliss at this point of the round. As we go back to Brendo. Thought maybe he'd fall, but he does survive.
Cyber is rotating up behind him, though. That's the risk. That the longer Brendo's in this position, the more in danger he is. Oda wins out against Souls, and Cyber gets a bit of a shifty on as KDS does find Oda, and there's Sage pushing into the site itself. Brendo gets the swing onto the vertical. It's Fisho getting 1 of his own, though. And here's Cyber that I talked about. He's just a step too late to stop Handy being dropped, who gets executed in and leaves him alone. There's 1. He has the ping on the second, removes the player. The 2 versus 1. Fish is trying to make his way inside the site with the kit, hops up, and he'll just trust the cover comes through. Over on the opposite end, they're not quite entirely sure where it is, but now they can do the 1 versus 1, and he's not able to get the full connection. Cyber does almost get the end of Wet there. 40 seconds, a little bit more health in the pocket of Wet, but at this point, with both these guns and players, it is the connection that matters. And Wet holds on against one of the best players in the world to get a second round.
And how many times have we seen a round, almost a carbon copy of that, right? Where it's a 1v1, Bliss trying to clutch up and it doesn't go their way. Finally, something does. Now, arguably, it shouldn't have really come down to that. The smoke complicated things on the 2v1, made it a little bit messy, but again, the groundwork, especially early on from Bliss, not all that bad. The clear was nice. Obviously, Cyber posed a threat and Brendo got caught, but Wettables had a clutch, gets some information, able to hit that pre-fire.
Wettables!
Wet tables.
Is Wettables a reference to, like, is it a thing?
I couldn't tell you the origin of his name, unfortunately. I have
like,
no idea.
If I was to put something to a Wettables, I would think like a face wipe, you know, like a...
Well, apparently Wettable is a genuine English word, the ability to get wet.
I mean, yeah.
Where the S comes in, I don't know.
All right.
10 seconds to go.
All right. I mean, starting to try and work out where players' names
5 seconds left.
come from. Sometimes it's easy. Guz.
Attackers must
Surname
locate
Guru.
and defuse a bomb.
Very Australian.
It's very Australian.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, easy. Hat, that's his name.
He's Dutch, so he's kind of boring.
Yeah. Well, he used to have like his full name was his cool name. It was like all in one word, and we did one cast with it, and they went change your name. Change this. And then others, Wettables, Fisho guy, loves fish, and is a guy. There you go.
Yeah.
2 minutes 20 remaining, and Tubarao is slowing things down a little. It's been very problematic in good and bad ways. The trick is going to get not the exothermic. You know that it's one apiece, it's a stand away. At that point, what you're gambling on is getting the exothermic. It's sort of value for money in terms of removed utility. At that point, the wall will still fall and it'll become a little bit less playable, but you can impact trick against a single Selma breach. You might even be able to get a peek back into it that you wouldn't otherwise get. Here, the roll on the Thatcher on the opposite end, and this is sort of what the Maverick ban has led into. You look at these lineups of how much utility has to be dedicated to hard breaches and the Thatcher. They usually bring the Twitch anyway. It's really turned into almost old school Siege fighting over reinforced walls.
Well, once again, we're going to see the Tubarao in play for IT Wall. It's Kaid and the Tube to combine, and we'll see if FaZe are still able to open up the wall. Unfortunately, no EMPs remain, so that may make things a little bit trickier, but the timing was good from the attack. The exothermic does pop, exposing Oda, who's pretty much now playing for his life in IT.
Oh, Cyber, continual danger man, is sat ready and waiting to pounce as soon as the swing comes out. Handy goes down first though. Oda, he might not know that Cyber's so close, but there's the big reveal. The danger smoke gets rid of him, and Souls gets rid of Oda. The swing onto the player trapped in IT from the back end. They double dip and almost catch him mid-reload. He swaps to the pistols. It's faster than reloading. Wet gets onto Vida King and goes for the freeze against the back end of it, buying themselves a second, and with 40, it's all precious. There's the swing right onto the back of Bandit, who did not know Cyber had been able to get in towards that IT control. Brando, though, makes sure that they keep this body into their favor. The open door becomes shut into the face of Souls as Sage is able to get another connection. 20 seconds, none of it seen, as the first defensive Bliss round goes into their favor.
I mean, this side is posing pretty big issues for both teams on the attack. We saw the hard breach actually quite efficient from FaZe. That was not really where it went wrong from them. Oda playing an off-meta position side of IT, the off angle, good for one. Was always going to die and eventually did, but in the 4 versus 4, Bliss did a good job in just maintaining those crossfires again, despite there being no army on the board. They had the confidence to find those kills. Wettables did give away his life a little bit, but it didn't matter in the end. The other 3 hold on. So good work from Bliss. Trying that defensively on that side, they are quite sound.
It's almost a little bit of map 1 Bliss, a little bit of map 2 Bliss there on their defense. We got some of the sitting in place, some of the little uh-oh moments of FaZe is able to set themselves up, get into position on top of rafters as well. Very clean, a little bit unaware. The swing onto the door on the bandit, but then those little dabbles with danger. Oda holding onto IT, waiting for that Selma to breach to get the kill through it. The leaning back in, the things that took FaZe by surprise on Bank that led to Bliss keeping the fight going. Here, we go down to the basement, and as I said, it's going to be a battle on those hard walls. They might not bring the Thatcher. I mean, it's nice to have, but they're very good with an IQ, and there's a lot of soft above these walls. You need to get the vertical control anyway. You wouldn't be able to get the single very easily. However, the double wall, which can put a lot of pressure on, the combination of that RAM and that IQ should make pretty quick work of it.
Yeah, we're seeing a decent amount of IQ play from FaZe in this series. That's perhaps been a point of critique for Bliss in the face of the Valk that they haven't in most cases. So we'll see if FaZe is able to get value from that here in round number 8. Castle in play, a grenade to deal with that particular window, which is to weaken this roam up above from Bliss. Both teams employing roams on this objective, and we'll get some answers as to which team is perhaps a little bit more proficient at it. Sage now top blue. Of course, he can now swing down the staircase alongside Oda, but Cyber seemingly aware. FaZe perhaps having a read on this position from Bliss. An ill-advised peek there probably would have been to the demise of Sage, so he'll fall back to connect with the rest of the team.
They haven't been caught, and this was one of the problems on Club. Remember how sort of handily FaZe removed those roam players, whether it was 2, it was the triangle of 3. They're supposed to be the strongest shaped, unless you're FaZe, and they're very easily smashed to pieces. The building blocks of success might be survival here as they get themselves, again, to this room I talked about, above the breach. They're going to look for potentially any stop on any sort of bandit tricking, anything that locks the wall, but they're not entirely sure they're safe yet, so the drones are still roaming out. Precious time wasted. We saw the difference was about 15 seconds last time for Bliss, and Cyber wants to try and get this show a-rolling.
Oh, silence across the map. Doesn't really feel like a whole lot has really happened so far, at least in terms of engagements. As I say that though, this show's very low. Cyber with a read, bottom staircase, and now this defender on an island, a flash to flush it out, and a clean pick.
I mean, there it is, FaZe, 3 bodies, 3 different places, all around the rooms, and that's that sudden strike I said they were so excellent at doing. A player does go down to the cap can in the middle of the room, and Cyber's able to pick up the revenge. They don't quite get anything more than the confirmation on the already downed player. FaZe, this is where they excel. Their ability to sort of weigh up what's in front of them, weigh up what seems like a hold with not a lot of time, and sort of go, we got the plan here, and we got the approach, 3 to 5. They're not quite in the proper danger zone yet, but Bliss, they're thinking about doubling down on the same site.
Yeah, I think upon reflection, they'll probably fall off the roam a little bit faster instead of doubling down on it, especially going in blind. It's quite challenging for them. Good read though from FaZe, again, stacking that single breach late. Man advantage, not missing any shots anywhere, so Bliss not really given any freebies in that round. So a challenge for them, but a round of consolidation for FaZe.
Now, it's still a bit of a back and forth. They've got, obviously, the Kaid claws. The Tubarão is in pocket this time round to try and maybe slow down some of the approach, the breach onto the walls, or on the stair sets, get yourself a little bit of a deep freeze. It was 3 engagements that happened almost simultaneously that came through from the side of FaZe there. That is that excelling in split theory that is often cited in podcast form, in newsletter form. In Twitter, do you believe it's real?
I mean, I'm sitting next to Fresh in the green room, so I'm going to keep my opinion to myself.
I had Fresh invented split theory, which, am I saying this out loud to irritate Fabian? Maybe. 5 to 3. FaZe, and, well, they're starting to find this map one pace again. Bliss. They seem a little bit more tired, a little bit more concerned. Obviously, as I said, the pressure is always mounting, always going their FaZe. If they win this map, this series, even though it's a little bit of a scratched win, losing the middle map, they still confirm themselves in the playoffs spot. They will not be able to be caught by either of the two teams, depending on the D+ result later on today. But definitely not Bliss, who only outside of this have one game tomorrow and could get another 4 points. So they need to see if they can try and thread some of these rounds. As you said, they're holding on a bit longer this time here. Whether that comes to success or not, I guess we'll see. Brendo ready for the swing round. Cyber's having to do some of the buck work on the top floor down, and as the calls come out, Sage is taking a bit of damage, but otherwise you're just always worried that FaZe is sort of readying themselves for another 3-2-1.
Yeah, minute 30. And a big commitment over towards Cafeteria, but it's Cyber to find the first. The tuber Rao will fall. Does KDS enter the cross here? Well, that's a question we're about to get an answer to. He does, kind of. Well, the cross was never really established as Brendo was forced forward. Oda not in a position to trade, and now he's being hunted by FaZe.
Yeah, this is it. The spray down. I think KDS actually passed by a Fenrir mine as it got activated and deactivated. Cyber does get picked up by
team kill.
Fisho, and a team kill. Okay. Something's suddenly gone into their favor here. Fisho did dabble with getting one. Has been rewarded with two. A bit of a crossed moment with 50 seconds. They've lost Cyber, who is having an excellent series, as I said. Handy's gone as well. They've lost the Dockerby calls. They still have three very powerful players and a hard breach necessary to try and get this broken through. Sage and Fisho. They're waiting for the first dabble, the first drips of the players to come up against them to try and hold off and stave off map point. The walls are solid. The only drop is via the stairs or the hatch itself. They'll hear that being passed, and Sage decided he wants to try and step into the fire in the fight, but just seen the split of the player there. A bit unlucky as they're opening up more and more angles. He's surrounded, but they've got to surround themselves inside the idea of putting the kit down. KDS almost goes down, taking the drop and a bit of damage. Where are they going with the plant here? King's blind. He's trying to tuck himself in. KDS does get his third for the round. Fisho, he's able to get one down. King's going for the plant. If he swings now, it's a 1 versus 1, but he's not quite confident enough to get the take. He gets it. He gets it with the revolver! A quad for the guy who loves fish.
Well, he's gone fishing and he's found all 4. What a play from Fisho Guy. Clutches up. Only a fraction of HP remaining. Had to pull out the pistol. What a play. They stalled out a little bit of time towards the end. I thought it was probably going to be Sage, the one to step up in the moment, but he was slain. Fisho Guy, definitely not a player that we look at typically in OS to be one to frag out big, but he can play that ankle roll really well. And that's a big result for Bliss.
That's the first time in this series of almost clutches, almost misses, almost hero moments. One has actually come together. The haunting 1 versus 3s that were so close on the first map by Oda twice in a row that sort of led to the downfall on Club. That has been broken a bit here when it needs to be broken more than ever. Fisho Guy goes from 1 kill to 5, suddenly finds himself up and amongst his teammates in performance and can get a bout of confidence. A confidence that FaZe wanted to break there. Oh, timeout was called. Yeehaw.
He's just like, yeah, another day at the office.
Another day at the office. He was actually in the last time FaZe played against an Australian team back in Yavle. He was the player that was on that roster that was dismantled 1-7. I was there, I had the pleasure of being there, and I saw the team leave after that game, and they said, oh, they're bleeping good at Siege, aren't they? Hey, so are you. 5-4. Bliss, they're still fighting for this phase. As I said, they've had that conversation. They're only 2 rounds away. Ying on the board. Well, something we've massively seen today.
And Kitchen, a site we also definitely haven't seen today. Ying definitely an intriguing point, but actually picked off. So at this time around, maybe in response to the Warden.
And the Clash. Holding on to the back end, they've been able to get themselves a little bit more solid, whether that's, as we sort of talked about with this site before, there's not a lot of meat to it for a Kitchen.
Meat is probably not the word that I would use. That's
It's
an interesting descriptor.
It's a thin cut. It's salami, baby. And you want the rump steak. Fisher guy will have that important thing. We often actually talk about shields, and you know, you talked about this with Tim Esports, right? For what words you can understand from him is you're putting someone into this position where they don't have that gun. They have to have a little bit more of like a less active, but also proactive role of trying to keep that front line put together. Cyber, as the Buck has sort of pinged it out and played the place of that position, he is thirsting for this first engagement. Do remember that in the previous round, the one that Bliss got, there was a team kill as well. So there is a ferocity here of FaZe to sort of say that was a blip on our radar and we are about to smash through your kitchen.
Cover the diffuser.
Frag grenade hot.
Yeah, so I think Fisher is going to play side to try and draw in this attack and then feed information as to what FaZe are looking to execute upon.
Don't drone hole. Please don't get them through the drone hole. I'm having a premonition. And they obviously don't know how much they're droned. There's one single sort of window as the quick hop in. They're getting the full eyes on the players. This is how FaZe does it, by the way. We get the great taste of how come FaZe can suddenly just go from 5 seconds, they've killed 3 people in different places. This is why. And this is what they've battled against as they get themselves on the upside down Aussie Repel. It's actually called an Aussie Repel.
Really?
Yeah, 100%. In the documents of the game designs, this is called an Aussie Repel.
Wow.
I know.
I never knew that.
Really?
Yeah, fun fact.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's see if Bliss can take it down. The Vault to come through. Aggressive from KDS. Oh, but Flisho puts the shield on his back and turns around to survive the next engagement. So it's a 3-on-3, 40 seconds, and the push stalled out, but Handy steps up.
The Clash is getting aggro. He's trying to just do some damage onto Handy here. Sage gets souls on the hop in now. You've still got Handy and Vidaking in the 2 versus 2. And again, with the shield, this is that sort of monkey's paw wish. We have a little bit of safety. We have one less gun for the important point, but they've already done the turtle swing before. And boy, that turtle can move. Sage is doing his best to get the cover, gets the drop onto Handy. They're beating up on the shield. You got to offer some support to that Clash. And there it is. Suddenly, we're level. Suddenly, there's some Vamos. 5 apiece. Both teams have used their timeout. All we have ahead of us is Siege.
Well, the Clash, they're definitely providing value for Fish and the team. Not only did the shield flipped onto the back actually allow him to survive what was all but a certain death, but then also stalling out that push. And Sage, with that information, the yellow pings, the calls coming from the team, did his job in supporting the rest of the roster, shut down that Vault. Then here in the 2 versus 2, able to find the down onto Handy, and Vidaking, unfortunately, not a whole lot he could do in that position. So Bliss flexing their muscles on Kitchen, and as you can see, fired up at the moment.
Vamos. Probably in both comms at this point. FaZe, again, you know, you lose the round after a timeout. It makes things a bit shaky. They went for one of their collapses there, and it was working until a plucky play. Another, I'm not going to say it was a clutch back-to-back, but definitely an against the grain hold here. We return to a site that has proven troublesome for both teams. And at this point, obviously, if Bliss can get this on, then they're sitting on that point. They're sitting on series point. This is their best place to try and get themselves concerned here. If FaZe win this out, you probably have them taking the map, just because of how this site has fallen throughout this series so far.
Well, Hardbridge hasn't typically had a big influence on how the rounds played out. Generally speaking, the attacking side has not had too many issues in opening up the main walls. So I'm assuming we'll see this once again. Double Hardbreach. Not the Thermite on this occasion, though. It will be replaced by the Habana of Souls. EMP to come through. And I don't think Bliss are directly contesting this at all.
No, they're sort of letting them take it a bit. Wettables is doing the best he can to keep it safe on the other side. The top of Blue. smoked off. You assume Fisho's calling this all to the rest of the team, and he's trying to find his way out, but also wants to try and stop anything on the way in. More flashes, more blinds. They swing in. One more smoke canister will stop them moving in directly behind it. They're more than ready, but so much utility on a single push. Oda finds a fight. Sage loses one, but Oda does win out his against KDS. The swing with the shotgun, and we just missed it, but they do get the down onto the Ying outside, but the King is off. But Cyber's about to be on right up round the back of the site itself, and if he's gone uncontested, this could be a blind swing. The cover. Handy's able to get Oda. Fisho, he gets one, but the second is too far away, but Cyber's on his left-hand side with some support, and there's the strike that he wasn't quite aware of. Brendo gets Cyber. It's a technical 2 versus 2 at this point. He really wants to try and get that player up with Handy. A little bit watched and down, winning out 3 for the round for that player. Vidiking in the smoke, recollecting the diffuser. Brendo, he's really not sure if he's safe to get the revive at this point. He has the C4. The rotations come out. They're popping around either side. They're holding on. They have so much time. The wide swing, it unfortunately goes away from him. So close as it can be, but FaZe, they're sitting on map and series point.
So much utility dumped over towards that top blue position. FaZe trying to brute force it with the Ying. Fisho, to his credit, did a great job in denying that initial push. Unfortunately, though, then falls. In the meantime, the sneak over towards the garage rafters position from Cyber had the potential to really dislodge that defense, and he was probably a little bit unlucky to not get rewarded for that position as much as he ultimately did. But FaZe just able to chip away, find a couple of unanswered picks. And they're the kind of team that doesn't typically make a lot of mistakes in the late round.
I mean, Handy, what a round for him to pop off as well, finding 3 of his own. Across the back end, we sort of started this day talking about the experience these players have, how many SIs Cyber has played, how many SIs they've been to, and for the fact that it's the first one all these Aussies have been to, it's also the first one Handy has been at as well. So he is experiencing all that pressure a very similar way.
5 seconds to go.
FaZe. 1 round now separates them from locking in this series and confirmation in playoffs. Not upper or lower bracket, but they will at least get themselves a safe enough distance to stave off being the team eliminated from this group.
Yeah, certainly pressure and expectation on FaZe at this event, given their standing overall. Second heading into the event. Trailing by a decent margin to W7M, of course, but that's not too unexpected.
Everybody is.
They're in a world of their own.
Apart from Bleed.
Well, true.
Got the win.
Yeah.
Good idea. Onto the mirror window. Now, mirror doesn't get as much play, but not for this reason, actually, because they could be breached and destroyed from the front with the Ash anyway in the pockets of Cyber. But this quick play against utility, the catch onto nothing. That is a well-played Thatcher. Will leave that Selma both popping off. Actually, no. Oh, I thought they were able to just get the timing there onto the bandit charge, but not quite. Well played and placed enough. Decent bandit tracking stops half of this wall being open. Gives Wet a little bit more wiggle room towards the back of IT.
Well, Brendo stationed down below on the mirror. I suppose looking to lean heavily into the Nitro cell, as well as the ability of the shotgun to create vertical lines of sight and playmaking opportunities to deny the plant. But FaZe often haven't really looked like they want to get that plant down, instead flooding sight, finding picks, trading kills, and eventually winning out the round in that way. Minute 30 then. It's Brendo looking to lock it down. Vidiking applying a little bit of pressure as an EMP comes forth from the Thatcher to deal with, again, additional pieces of utility elsewhere. Brendo traded. FaZe with the advantage for now.
Sage is finding a fight outside the IT breach either side. There's a couple of players on their shoulders, but they want to make sure the site isn't entirely swapped through. Hot pinged. They're sort of saying the statement, we know you're here. They know they're here as well. Cyber, he locks in one. Doesn't get the second with the pistol. 2 versus 3. With 50 seconds left, and the 2 remaining players, Oda and Sage, have everything to play for to keep them in this fight, to keep them going. Now it is just Sage, another 1 versus 3. We have been here many times before. We've lost it, most of them. Vidiking's stuck, but it's a post-plant situation. He's trying to find the first fight and popping bullets, but this is all time. Vidiking wasted, and unfortunately wastes the player as well. Bliss. Bitterly close at the end there. They took their first map in the middle of the series, but almost took their second, something to carry them through towards tomorrow. their final day and their final opportunity to stave off elimination. FaZe, congratulations. They have confirmed themselves for playoffs, but that game was a lot